The number's on the card, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Millionth show, and today we are reviewing Dr. No. We are starting our James Bond series. My name is, of course, James, joined once again by my co-host Henry, and we have a special guest with us off camera, Tom/Thomas/Tommy. How you doing?
I'm good. I've been waiting for this for 6 months roughly, so finally great to get started on this.
Yeah, man. Well, yeah.
But we've all been waiting for it,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we had this idea, me and Henry, when we started the Batman series, and we thought, yeah, man, like, this is inevitable. We have to do Bond at some point, We were going to start in October, but it was like we did Saw first, just to kind of, iron out the last few
getting the Halloween spirit.
Exactly, and here we are now with a series a franchise which is just very, not just an absolute mammoth in cinema history, but also very big in our own personal lives as well. All of us, right? We all grew up with Bond,
yeah,
and still are really.
Yeah, I've watched these countless amounts of times, man. Especially the Sean Connery films. I feel like I saw these like so many times as a kid. Yeah.
Well, this is going to be interesting. Before we get into Dr. No itself, I think it's worth just kind of giving a little preface into what we're going to do. So, I mean, for example, one thing we're going to do with this series, obviously, part of our show is to rank elements within the Bond, within any film franchise we're doing. And obviously, with Bond, there are 25 films in the canon, but we're also going to do an additional 3 in our series. We're going to review them in chronological order. We're going to start obviously with Dr. No. We'll finish with No Time to Die, but we'll also have the original Casino Royale, which was 67, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Right.
Same year as You Only Live Twice.
We're gonna have
Never Say Never Again.
Never Say Never Again.
Yeah.
And we're gonna do The Rock as well. So look out for them as well. So it's gonna be 28 episodes. We're gonna rank. I think we've got 14 different categories within each one, so this could get quite lengthy. But we're gonna use Dr. No as just an opportunity to let this out. We've also got Henry. You've got a game for us, don't you? In the spirit of Jigsaw.
I certainly do. Yeah, in the spirit of Jigsaw. I have compiled some questions about like basically a quiz for Tom and James about Dr. No. You can play along if you want as well. The difficulty here for me is trying to find out stuff which they don't know about.
Yeah.
Because they're complete boffins when it comes to Bond trivia.
I think that's fair to say. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons we've brought Tom aboard is because Tom's like the biggest Bond fan I know, and that's like including myself. Like I consider myself like very much like like the biggest Bond fan most people will meet, but Tom's maybe even more so than me. So like it's pretty, and Henry, you're like compared to the average Joe as well. You're like massive Bond fan. So like it's going to be. This is something we're extremely passionate about. We're obviously all English from the home of Bond. We're all like, we grew up on it from a young age. I watched my first Bond film when I was 7 years old. Probably the same for you two, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
View to a Kill was your first Bond film?
Yeah.
Okay. Henry, do you remember? I think I remember your first.
I think my first one might have been Thunderball.
I thought yours was on Her Majesty's Secret Service.
I don't know. My first memory of Bond is was the famous scene in Goldfinger where he's on the laser table, and I couldn't watch it.
Goldfinger was my first Bond. I remember that. I remember that, man. That's probably one of my earliest life memories. Like, but I mean, we'll talk about that when we get to Goldfinger in a couple of weeks. But anyway, like I say, this is something we're really passionate about. When I was 16 or 17, I did famously a James Bond marathon. So
I remember.
That was me and my mate. We sat and watched every single Bond film consecutively, back to back, and that took us a week. Well, 5 or 6 days, I think, actually. So, we've been to the Bewley Motor Museum. I think all of us. You as well, Henry, right?
Did you come? I don't think I was.
We went twice, but you might have gone other times. But I went at least twice, and both times were with you. So,
yeah. So it's just something very special to us. So we're going to be very passionate about this. We'll try not to make the episodes too lengthy, but It's going to be fun. It's going to be good fun.
Yeah, it's plenty to talk about with this.
Have you got anything to add before we get into Doctor No itself, Tom, Henry?
Well, I do have a little bit of trivia about the title of the film, because the studio's Japanese affiliate, you could say, they mistranslated it originally as to being "We don't want doctors,"
Oh,
which I don't know if that was a Japanese thing against Doctor No himself, but
yeah, maybe.
I didn't know that actually.
Wow.
And also, I've not done any prior research on trivia before this.
Nor have I. Yeah, this is okay, because we're gonna have a quiz, and the idea is to pit me against Tom basically in terms of like who know. Because I think Tom, you're more of an active Bond fan in terms of you watch them more than probably. I've kind of gone off the ball with Bond. I've got a lot of dormant knowledge, right? I've got like stuff that I haven't. I've got a section of my brain dedicated to Bond, which has just been sleeping for a while. I mean, obviously, Henry, since we knew this, we were going to do this series, haven't watched a Bond film, I don't think, since No Time to Die.
yeah,
Actually, I don't think I've watched a single one.
Then. I haven't seen
Yeah.
one all year, minus Skyfall, which is like the cheap Bond film, you know.
I usually watch them. It's true, I watch them a lot, but I've kind of gone off. I kind of didn't watch them for 4 months roughly because I don't know, work and stuff. But I don't like. I'm not one of those like cinephiles as they call them. They're more comfort food for me often. Like there's so many of them, so you can always watch one, and by the time you get to the one you've watched like least like latest, if that makes sense, it still doesn't feel old, so you can keep watching and watching them, and they don't really get old. So for me at least, and that's how I do it.
Yeah, as with most Bond films, I think this one is quite rewatchable. I mean, I remember I've seen this like quite a lot of times, but a surprising amount of stuff that I didn't remember that happened in it.
What was surprising for me, Doctor No is not a film that I go back to very often. But watching it last night, I was just stunned by like how good it was for what I was almost surprised because it's always one of them. It's always in my head like sort of a mid Bond film where it's like it's not one of my favorites that I'll go back to at any time. It's not one of those that I avoid either. It's just one of those that always I end up neglecting, I think. And I'm not really sure why that is because it has a lot of strengths. I think the ending is a bit lackluster. Felt rushed. But I wasn't complaining because we don't want like 4 hour Snyder Cut films.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything. But I will say just in terms of pure facts here, obviously released in October 1962, run out of 1 hour 50 minutes, and directed by Terence Young. So, and obviously this is the first Sean Connery Bond. So I might as well add it now. So, you can hang on for the end, ladies and gentlemen. The elements within the Bond films we'll be ranking is the Bond actor, the Bond girl, the villain, the henchman, the car/vehicle, the MQ, Moneypenny, ally/Felix Leiter, gadget, theme song, opening, Sigma moment, of course, millionth trademark there, and obviously the film itself. So you can look out for them. At the end of every episode, we'll be ranking all the elements against each other. So 14 times 28, whatever that's going to end up being at the end of No Time to Die. But yeah, it's going to be fun. And just before we do fully dive into Doctor No, another thing we're going to do is we're going to...
112.
112, yeah. We're going to... basically, we're going to go, after we've done this episode, we're going to go away, each of the three of us individually. We're going to make our own rankings of what we think should or will be the end results. I mean, you can be as strategic as you like, because there will be a winner, right?
As in for the Bond actors.
No, well, we'll decide on that later. But like we'll probably for the actors in the films, probably those two, and then what we'll do is we'll come back at the very end when we've actually done the official millionth ranking. So there's going to be a millionth ranking, then our three individual ones, and obviously we're going to have majority votes for each element. So it's going to be fun, and we'll see who gets the closest by the end. So we can either make our lists. So we're going to make them privately. We're going to put them in an envelope or a drawer, or whatever. Not look at them for 6 months, and then when we get back to it, we'll see we'll do a bonus episode where we look back and go, okay, like, you know, who got the
how
closest.
how
So,
accurate were we? Yeah.
and what you can do, you can either go about your you can do it how you think it should be, or you can be strategic and think how it will end up, you know, factoring in, you know, the other two.
Personally, I think Never Say Never Again is a masterpiece. So
Yeah. So it's going to be fun. We got some really exciting stuff coming up. So, Doctor No itself. Now, I do want to get through just before we do start. Your best Bond, James Bond, each of you.
you mean our favourites?
No, no. I want you to like. I'm the casting director now, yeah, because Daniel Craig's finished now. You got to give me your best. The name's Bond, James Bond.
Well, this is the problem because like there's so much speculation over it. I mean, I'm very basic, like so I would have probably
Go
had
on.
to say Henry Cavill. So
No, I'm asking you to do. You're Henry.
He wants you to repeat the line.
You're auditioning for Bond now. Give me
oh
your Bond, James Bond. Yeah,
oh
we've all done it in the mirror, so.
oh, I see. Yeah, of course, of course. The name's Bond, James Bond.
Nice. Go on, Tom.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
Nice, nice. I've already done mine, so. But I'll do another one. The name's Bond, James Bond. Sean Connery style. But yeah, I think obviously we'll see who gets hired after that. We've put our pin in our candidates, so take that over to who's it, MGM. They can broccoli, you know, they can choose between the three of us. So yeah, now our relationships with this film, with Doctor No, we always talk about our kind of relationship with it. As I think I've already touched on mine in terms of it being a film I don't go back to so often. But what about you two?
For me, it's like I think it has a reputation of being like a vanilla James Bond film, but I don't think that really does it justice. Like so many film franchises have let's say obviously nowhere near as long as James Bond, most of them, but let's say Terminator, for example. That film is quite, in my opinion at least, quite basic compared to what it becomes later in Terminator 2. To have a really good start to like ensure the franchise's survival is can't be like overstated, and I think they really hit like the nail on the head with this film, and it could have gone much worse actually. But and I think like it also has its own its own thing going. You know, it's unique. I think it plays off a lot more like a detective story actually, where James is a lot like less kind of gadget laden, and he's really like wading into like enemy territory. Then he's just like more of a detective really than like a secret agent juggernaut who just kind of goes in and like just destroys everything that gets in his way in a way. But yeah, and one thing I really like about the advertising that went in behind this film is you could have seen like if they were confident that there was going to be another James Bond film, but in the advertising for this and one of the commercials I've seen, it says for Doctor No, the first James Bond film. So I like the confidence they had going into advertising it. They didn't say like, oh, a James Bond film or James Bond.
You say that
the
actually.
first James Bond film.
And little did they know, man, 60 years later. This is the 60th anniversary of Bond, by the way, I forgot to mention. So, you know. What were you going to say, Henry?
Well, you say that they're confident in it, but actually it turns out that United Artists were actually quite they were worried about this film because it went £100,000 over budget of its, you know, relatively small £1 million budget then.
It had a $1 million budget.
Yeah, which would be about like I think 8 million today or something.
Wow, I mean, I know it's the 60s, but still, that's like nothing, man.
Yeah, because it went over cost. They were actually close to pulling the plug on this film and they gave it minimal promotion because they didn't think it would turn a profit. But it was the word of mouth that really made this film like, you know, explode in terms of, you know.
Wow.
That's good, but that makes it more impressive in a way because like they didn't have that, but still when they made a commercial, they said like the first James Bond film. That like that took a bit of bottle, if you ask me. Like especially considering what you just said, that it went over 100 grand like over budget. So
yeah,
props to Doctor No.
And well, touching what you said there about it being actually like a proper sort of spy, espionage, detective. That's the interesting thing for me because I think Goldfinger is the film that really kind of. I mean, what we see in Doctor No is like literally the first 10 minutes, pretty much all the tropes that still live on to this day with Bond, right? It's just staggering. Like, and I like. It must be amazing for someone that didn't grow up with Bond like we did, that goes and says, okay, I'm gonna watch. That maybe is only familiar with Daniel Craig or Pierce Brosnan at best, and then they go, okay, let me watch the old Bond, and they watch, say they go and watch Doctor No, and the first 10 minutes they'll actually see where all this stuff began, where it was born. That's what's amazing for me, and also with From Russia with Love. I think these two films are kind of almost. They are still Bond films, but they're almost Bond before he becomes Bond as we know him. If you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
because they
Like,
didn't have the
really
pre-title
exploded.
sequence, or this is the only one which didn't have a pre-title sequence, and which is
True.
one of the Bond staples basically, as well as the actual theme. Well, the theme is just the James Bond theme for this, which is
Yeah.
fair enough. I did notice they used it quite a lot in this film, but I
Yeah.
can I can respect it because it's a good theme, and it became quite popular afterwards. So
Well, somewhat.
just
Yeah,
just
and
just a little bit.
another like thing to touch on with the music as well. I'm not sure who did the I forgot the name of the one who does the music for this, but it's not John
John
Barry.
Barry.
John Barry's
Yeah.
first James Bond film is actually From Russia with Love, so you can hear
Yeah.
over exaggerated 60s music in this, which is quite
Yeah, that's
funny.
true. That's true.
Yeah.
There's always been a dispute over who actually created the Bond theme song. There's like that's
Monty
not
Norman.
yeah, like it's credited. I think it's credited to John Barry, if I'm not mistaken. But
I think it's
there's
Monty
there's a
Norman or
yeah,
something.
there's a big dispute over that. And I think there might be even be a third party involved there.
Yeah,
I
because
can't.
there's a song which Monty Norman took some inspiration from as well. So
Right.
yeah,
But I mean, yeah, I mean, and what's your relationship with this film, Henry?
I mean, I always kind of remember this as being, like Tom said, it's kind of like a vanilla Bond film. And I actually saw this like twice in the last week in preparation for this because the first time I saw it, I actually didn't like it. Like I was
What
like,
are
this
you
is all
talking
this.
about? First time ever, or just this
No,
week?
no, not first time ever. First time this week that I saw it. I actually liked it a lot less than I remembered. And then for some reason, only a
Huh.
couple days later, I just saw it again, and then um, I I don't know exactly what it was. I enjoyed it a lot more. Um, I think it was particularly my favorite parts of this is actually Doctor No himself, even though he has,
Really?
quite limited screen time. Um, because I think even for the first Bond film, I think they do the villain pretty well, even though again he's like not got the most screen time ever, which is probably I think the biggest like gripe I have, the fact that you don't see him much.
I think with Doctor No, like he's really like what they did really successfully in this film with him, despite his limited screen presence, and which they didn't really do for other villains later, which we'll get into eventually. But they really built like an atmosphere around him. Like, who is this like Doctor No? Who's this person who's like
Mm.
pulling the strings behind this little island thing? So, and then that really builds up to when you finally like see him, and then like you kind of see bits of him throughout the
Mm.
film. You hear his voice and it sounds really authoritative. And then
Yeah,
you see like the professor just like kind of shook by him.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then later
Picture related.
you see like you just see his shadow later when he's
Yeah,
coming into the
yeah,
room.
yeah.
It really does an excellent job of building up to the villain and like
Mm.
utilizing his presence as much as possible.
Mm.
For me, I mean, we'll probably I'll talk about Doctor No more when we get to him, and especially when we rank the villains. But I think for me with this film, I really, really enjoyed watching it last night. I was very entertaining film, more so than I remembered, and because, like I say, it's not a film that I've given much time. Not because I don't enjoy it. It's just sort of like kind of. It's quite straightforward
Yeah.
story, and I'm kind of you know. But actually, I really enjoyed watching it last night. I thought it kind of surprised me how. I mean, there are parts of it which don't hold up so well.
Mm.
Let's say,
Yeah.
and we'll have to touch on those things as we go through the earlier films for sure. But there are some elements which hold up really well, which really stood the test of time, and which still inspire films to this day. I mean,
Mm.
the amount of parodies and spin-offs and stuff we've had of Bond, but that's almost testament to how colossal a figure he is, and not just in cinema, but just in pop culture and in general. You know, I mean, so I think without further ado, we can jump in and go into the story. Yeah. So we open up with the opening gun barrel. So straight away, we're straight in there, man. And obviously the theme song itself. Now, we don't get a pre-credits scene. That's like you said, Henry. That's not something Doctor No established for us, but it did open up this opening gun barrel and the theme song, and even the dancing ladies in the pre-credits, not in the credits themselves, in the opening credits. So
I
love
there's
how
one
thrown
thing.
together it is. It's like they want to have this opening, then they want to have this opening with dancing, and they have like three blind mice. And
So
I
they
wanted
stitch
to
them
ask,
together.
I wanted to ask both of you actually. For this film, there's like kind of the James Bond theme. There's like underneath the mango tree, and there's like three blind mice as well, like that plays throughout it. Do you two have like a main kind of song in your head for this? Because I think for me personally, like it's three blind mice for some reason.
Really?
Because
Really?
because you kind of as the film like goes into them, you see them like walk, their silhouettes walking, and it's got like that's the end of it, and then they just kind of do their stuff like at the club when they have to. But and you don't actually hear it as much as what you call it underneath the mango tree, but I don't know, it just sticks with me a bit more. And it feels kind of a bit, I don't know, cop out in a way to just put the James Bond theme on, because it feels like that's more a shared thing between all the films rather than just this film. I mean, but I'll leave that to you. What do you think?
I think I would have said it underneath the mango tree would have been the one that I associate the most.
Really?
And well, I
Oh,
mean, of
man,
course,
such caffeine. I thought you'd disagree. No way, because like you've got to remember, when we're talking about this film, try and think of it now as though it was a standalone film. There was never a sequel. Now, what's the theme song?
I know the theme of it is literally the James Bond theme. It's just in my head I associate it with underneath the mango tree,
Yeah.
as in.
Nah, you guys are crazy,
That's
man. Because
fair.
it's played. The Bond theme is
Yes,
not just the
I know.
opening theme. It's
That's what I
played
mean.
so
No,
many
that
You
times
is
have
throughout
to
the.
like you can't
that is
like you have to acknowledge reality, I think, in this, because the fact is it's not like a film that was in a vacuum. It's like it spawns this, and like because of that, like we have to kind of consider it a bit, whether this like has like the exclusive claim almost on the James Bond theme. I mean, the other ones use it a lot, but I guess if you had to like pit the other films against each other, this one would have easily the best claim to the James Bond theme. But yeah, I think
But then I would argue, what about the 007 theme?
that the James Bond theme like is
No. I'm talking about the 007 score, which is in it's in a handful of them. It's in Moonraker when he's being chased. I think it's in Live and Let Die as well. It's like da, 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 da,
yeah, no,
and you only live twice.
that's just a generic action theme though. That's not like
Yeah,
James Bond's theme.
Yeah. No, what
but
I
do you
mean
see where
is
I'm
in to
coming from?
say.
Because that's in multiple films as well, right?
Yeah, no, what I mean to say, just to clarify, is I know that the James Bond theme is the actual, basically the theme song of this film. I always remember and associate it with Underneath the Mango Tree.
Well, we do need to establish this because
Oh, I
one of
go
the
for the
things
James
we're
Bond
ranking
theme.
is the theme song from each film. So we have to. It's going to be the James Bond theme, right?
Yeah, I agree with
That's
that.
But then that would just automatically win against all the other ones because it's so classic and so timeless, and it's you can't
you
we
think that, but not necessarily.
Yeah, that's what I was
If
going to say.
listeners that have been with us for the Batman series and the Saw series, doesn't always end. The rankings don't always end up how you expect,
Yeah,
even how we
exactly.
expect. That's why it's going to be fun doing a
Yeah,
pre-list. If you want, we can both do pre. We can all do pre-lists of the theme songs as well. Actually, that would be a good one, I reckon,
that would
because
be.
we each have our own music tastes as well. So
Yeah, and the
we can
thing
do that
is,
as well.
yeah. Speaking of Underneath the Mango Tree as well, just a little bit of trivia. The Ursula Andress and Sean Connery kept fighting over the record player so they could learn to sing it in this.
Oh
Uh,
no way.
because with
God.
the budget of this, they probably only had one record player between the group. So you know,
And have we got any? I mean, this is a great chance to talk about the opening gun barrel sequence. That's so iconic. What have we got to say about it? He's wearing a hat.
Yeah.
I like in the earlier Bond films he wears a hat, you know,
Yeah.
like a
Yeah,
trilby, right?
fedora. Yeah.
Is it? I thought it was a trilby, isn't it?
Well, I don't know what what
Oh,
Trilby looks like,
I
but
don't know.
they
It's
just
just
look
a
similar.
hat. I'm like,
the Bond hats, man. You know, like that's
yeah,
the thing.
it's
We can
cool,
rank all the
that's it.
Bond headwear, you know.
Yeah, yeah. What about Sean Connery's
Sean
toupee? You know.
Connery's wig as well.
Yeah, it's toupee, yeah, man.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the
that's something
thing.
people might not know,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it's still something I question because it's if it's true, which I guess I have no reason to doubt it is, but it like moves around like so. I don't know if that's made
yeah.
of horse hairs or whatever, but
Even
obviously
if
Sean Connery's as bald as an egg, right? But so allegedly he was bald during these films, so and they made a hairpiece for him.
Apparently, for this, like, it's debated a bit, like, because I read in one of the books we had about the James Bond films that, like, by the time it was Goldfinger, he had to wear a toupee, or after that or something. But this one, he had
Right,
his real hair kind of
right.
still. So I'm not sure if, like, but some say he was bald before he did this. So, I mean, it's probably the truth would be revealed if you looked at like pre-shot photos of him, I guess.
Yeah, but those are quite rare, you know.
Yeah.
Not just because it's a while ago,
Mm.
but I guess people at the time didn't think this film would be go on to have the legacy that it has, so they probably didn't. So that's the funny thing with Bond. There's all these. There's even though it's such like a huge thing, there's so many myths and rumors. I mean, like you surprised me last night. You told me Honey Rider was dubbed.
Yeah, she was
That's
done.
yeah,
Surrender's dubbed. Did you know that, Henry?
yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, I didn't
A
know
lot
that
of the
until
Bond
last
girls
night.
were.
I
So
always do. I've heard that Goldfinger's dubbed, which
You
yeah.
know,
I still I hate when I learn these things because that
Well,
kind of takes away some of the magic for me.
but
Sylvia
to be
Trench
fair,
is so dumb.
Sylvie Trench is dubbed.
Yeah, she's like,
Damn.
but in the commercial for Dots Know, she has a real voice. So like you can hear her
Wow.
real voice and then hear what they decide to put on. So
That's
it's
so
quite,
weird. That must have
it
been
is.
because
I
that never
mean,
happens in today's films, right? As far
yeah.
as I'm aware,
Well,
but it happened a lot back in the day, I suppose, didn't it?
well, yeah. Especially because what they would do often, they would. This was most of the case for a lot of the Bond girls, especially early on. They would they pick up. Well, I mean, to be fair, Ursula Andress was quite an unknown, I don't know, model by men. But they normally go for someone for their looks, but if they didn't have the right voice, they just dub them over with someone who did. So
Interesting.
Wonder what they classify as like the right voice for this, but
Hmm.
yeah.
yeah, that's a good
I
question.
wonder who classified
Where's
it.
Ursula Andress from, by the way? Do you know, Henry?
I
Not
think she's
sure.
Swedish.
I thought
Maybe.
she might be Ukrainian. I'm going to look it up now. I can't believe none of us know this.
I'm pretty sure she's Swedish. They were quite like,
That would make sense if she
Yeah.
is. No,
is she not
she's Swiss.
Swiss?
Yeah,
No, that would definitely not have been in my
she's
first 10
Swiss.
guesses.
She's Swiss. How about that?
Was so
Fun to know.
American after mixing those two up, but
Yeah.
what can you do?
Well, there you go.
Swiss.
We've all learned something today about Doctor No. That's now there you go. Like
Hmm.
none of us knew that. I thought one of us would, man.
Hmm.
Okay, well anyway, yeah, back to the opening gun
Yeah,
barrel.
back to the opening.
So have we got any? Is there anything interesting you guys how they filmed it or something like that? I mean, or it's just something.
Just cool. I
Grown
mean,
to
I
Yeah.
the thing, it's kind of like I like I love to use the word iconic, but the actual during the actual James Bond theme playing, like all the like colored dots going around, and the
Right.
way of introducing the credits, I think is at least visually quite interesting.
Yeah,
Because
it
they're
is.
like flexing the fact
Yeah,
they
the
have
flexing.
color,
We
right?
think it's
Yeah.
because they're flexing their color capabilities back then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
because even in the original Batman film in '66, they they had all their brightly colored outfits to flex the fact it was also in
Right.
color. So
Yeah, man. Oh, and now this is officially the oldest film we reviewed, Henry, because before now it was Batman '66.
yeah,
So there you go. I think probably it's going to be quite safe to say this is the oldest film we'll ever review, right?
yeah,
So
yeah. It doesn't
unless
feel
something staggering happens.
yeah.
yeah, you could have like a classic series or something, but that's for another day.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so then so we get the dots. I always found the opening, the credits quite strange. I don't know. It's just like it doesn't feel like Bond to
Yeah,
me.
you feel
I'm taken away by
experimental.
the. Sorry.
It's like experimental almost.
Yeah, it's a bit it's '60s though, you know. So
Yeah,
you know.
anything.
And it's not like they continue with it. So yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so then
Dancing.
we blend actually three different. So we get the Bond theme, and then we get some like dancing sort of Jamaican kind of theme, and then we get into Three Blind Mice. Now this is actually something because I have no memory of watching this for the first time except for the Three Blind Mice, and this opening. Literally the first ever thing we see in a Bond film is these three Jamaican fellows. They're like, walking along. They're blind, and
Yeah, they got their
there's
little
some.
cups,
Yeah,
for
that's right.
cash.
Begging cups. Then there's some English chaps. They're playing bridge.
Yeah,
Was it?
bridge.
Yeah.
They're playing bridge, and then one of them, what's his name?
Yeah,
Strangway.
Professor
Strangway.
Strangways.
He's got a shoot off, and he walks past the three blind mice, gives them some money, like gives them something in the cup, and then he gets shot. He gets
But yeah,
assassinated.
they shoot him, which is
Yeah.
big
Yeah.
surprise.
One.
And that was for however old I was when I was 8 or 9 or 10. I don't know. That was like wow, I was like, oh, that's where kindness gets you.
Yeah, literally. But one thing I found quite interesting when I watched it later is the fact that when they're leaving, when Strangway's leaving the guy them to play their bridge or whatever, the shot, because obviously these three later are kind of questioned because
Yeah.
they're like involved. James Bond believes that they're like involved with the murder.
Mm-hmm.
You see the backs of the two in one particular shot turn out to be innocent, but you see like Dent there, like in the middle of them, staring at the camera a bit. So I think that's to like
okay.
keep him in the audience.
Foreshadowing, yeah.
Audience memory a bit. It's quite interesting to me when I noticed that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Also, not the first time we've reviewed a film with a character called Dent in it.
Yeah.
Was there not even a
Yeah,
guy in
exactly.
Saw called Dent? Or maybe I'm
Yeah,
getting
it sounds like someone who would be in Saul, but I don't think that was. Anyway,
Detective Dent. Yeah, there wasn't. Never mind.
yeah, because they move on as well. Like they go to Strangways as his gaff, basically.
Yeah, man. They're not
Um,
done yet. They're going to waste his secretary as well, man.
yeah, exactly. And fun fact about her is she is actually played by the person who owns the house that they were filming in for that,
Huh.
which is how
wow.
she got the part.
How about that?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's like a jump cut when she gets
Yeah.
shot, which there's
Well,
a couple of jump cuts here that are a bit.
Yeah, very jarring, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, that was a Terrence. That was a Terrence Young sort of director's kind of like vision, you could say.
Really?
He wanted to kind of um use some sort of like quick cuts in the editing so that it would kind of help with the pacing of the film and sometimes deal with the some of the writing issues. Like sometimes I did notice in this the fact that they'd be like, oh yeah, so we're gonna send you out to go here, and then like the next cut is like it like blurs to them like arriving at that place because I think they had a few. I don't know what it was. It might have been, some issues with the writing that they had to kind of overcome by that.
I'm confused by jump cuts. I always assumed that was kind of like a lack of budget sort of thing where they're just like, oh, we don't have enough films, so we need to just make it look good. Just try and stand in the same position you were earlier and, hold
Yeah, I
your
did.
pose there for a minute while we change this or change that,
Yeah, there was some
That's
times
what I
where
always assumed it was. It's just kind of,
yeah,
lack of.
there were some times where it wasn't like action related, where it just looks like you're
Yeah.
doing. If you notice it, you can't unsee it. Like,
Well, I mean, you've got some pretty, I don't even say infamous, I will say, green screen work as well later on, right?
yeah, exactly.
So
Well, it's
you can
1962, man.
tell in moments like the age. What I do love about this film is obviously the locations. I mean, this is obviously the home of Bond in a way because Ian Fleming wrote the Bond books in Jamaica in his house there, and obviously the first Bond film takes place in Jamaica, and
Yeah,
obviously Bond comes back a few times as well to visit.
yeah. And
So
the little
One
thing actually you might find interesting is Jamaica actually wasn't independent during the time of this film. Actually,
Yeah,
it became independent 2 months before the film released. So James Bond technically this is the only film where he's never left British territory.
yeah,
wow,
yeah. I was telling you
that's
last night.
crazy. Yeah, but like to that detail, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't know it was that fine cut. That
Wow.
when you filmed it, it was still part of the British Empire, but when it came out, it was not. So
The only Bond film
It's
where he
really-
doesn't leave British
it's
territory.
really interesting because in English A level, we had to read this book called Wild Cigars to Sea, also released in 1962, also based in Jamaica, partly. And like I don't know, maybe it was maybe that was a big thing in English news back then. It was like, oh, this country left, and maybe some that was more popular to write about in media, like things set in Jamaica, but that's just my speculation by the correlation of two random bits of media I've looked at. But one thing I do like in this scene with the jump cut is when they put the file down that says Dr. No.
Oh
It's like,
Yeah, the
yeah,
music and everything. Yeah.
yeah, that's great.
like shit's
Yeah.
hitting the fan, like when that gets laid down there.
Yeah, that was cool. That was very cool. So then we cut to a little bit of some old school like Radio Center gave me a little shades of Italian job there,
Yeah.
and then and I don't know, like the other thing about Bond films, right? It's just this is what I love about these films is they really capture the times they're in. It's like going in a time machine,
It's
and you
amazing.
see the
Yeah, for
fashion,
sure.
and obviously not just the fashion, but the height of fashion. Everything here is like the top echelon of what was available at the time, and that is still the case today. Whether that be obviously the attire or the hairstyles or the cars, all those things are very like they're always top of the range stuff. The watches, Bond's like associated with quality, right?
Mm.
You know,
Well,
contrary to some of the films that we'll end up reviewing.
yeah,
But
exactly.
I just think it's just always an education to look at film from the 60s or the 70s or the 80s or whatever, and you just see how things change. The women as well, I think massively, they change a lot, throughout the course of and that's reflective of history. Bond tends to reflect history a lot. So and you see, the shapes of women changing and the styles and everything. That's always interesting, and obviously the
And
social
Bond himself.
interactions, the Bond himself, exactly how he interacts, not with women and with just like in general. It's always fascinating to observe these things.
Yeah, like I really like that as well. This is one of the strongest things for me about this film. Is like you just get to see like England at the very beginning as well, and like uh, Jamaica as well, and these parts of the world that are especially. It's more interesting to me the bit about England because I come from there, so you get to like see it in a very unfiltered way. Like, I mean, it's being done for a film, of course, but you get to see like the very like old English like kind of I don't know social activities and stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
how they
Like
dress
playing
and everything, how
bridge.
they behave. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, for sure. So then so the radio center then guy goes to the casino to find the closest MI6 agent, and this is it, man. This is like
Just before we get onto that, like when I
okay.
was little, I thought it was really fun. Well, looking back, it's funny because when he gives like, there's a guy who's sent to kind of get James Bond. He's like, I'm looking for a James Bond. And like, I thought when I was little that was James Bond.
Ah.
Like, because on the VHS we used to watch these on, it was like always like you couldn't hear the words quickly. So when I just heard James Bond, I thought like, oh, that's James Bond. But when they go, it was like a troll thing for me. I was like, oh no, that's James Bond, not this
Fake
guy.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know, man. This is obviously in cinema history one of the most iconic shots of all time, like hands down, right? And you actually get, I would say, at least two of them in this film because you've got this one and you've got Honey Rider, like when we
Yeah.
meet her as well, right? I think they're both like momentous
Very
sort
iconic.
of, cultural moments. And this is the first one we get, so this is where we actually get to meet Bond himself, and in as what will go on to become very classic Bond fashion. He's playing cards, and he's winning obviously.
Yeah,
There's a
he's like
girl
he gets
opposite.
the
Everyone there's they're all it's all blokes there apart from one good-looking lady there, and they're then getting into the back and forth.
he's like wiping her out as well because like
Yeah.
she says like, oh yeah, the house will cover it, right? To the guy next to me, he's like, yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
which also implies that James Bond is beating the house somehow. So
Of course.
That's really funny. Like they're like saying him up there like complete. One thing I really like about it is like this scene is like the complete instant confidence they introduce James Bond with. Like he just is there, and he always is like the classiest one in the room, and like I kind of missed that with some like films, more modern films, where it's all about like the beginner like getting to grips half the film, and you just can't like kind of just immediately be in the film and like just like kind of watch someone who is something rather than has to become something first. And that's the way it actually was in the novel, you know, like they James Bond was like more kind of on edge a bit, and he kind of had to kind of work his way into the role more. But this film is just like complete instant confidence.
What I always love about this scene, and it kind of gets me every time, is just the slow build up into revealing. They don't cut to him straight away. It's first from behind, then you hear his voice, you see his hands,
Yeah,
you
dealing
know,
the
and
cards.
you
Yeah.
see the interactions, the back and forth, the flirting, you know, and then I don't know if this is just a '60s thing or whatever. I mean, it's become so iconic, but the way they introduce themselves, because I noticed Bond, Sylvia Trench, and Honey Rider all do it. They introduce themselves with their surname followed by their first name and then their surname, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever find that weird? It's like she sets the tone. She goes Trench, Sylvia Trench, and then
Yeah, and then
and then you
he
are.
like parrots it almost by going Bond, James Bond.
Yeah,
But
there's
then
like go
yeah.
on.
Well, the thing is that was I mean, I mean, they didn't know it would become iconic, obviously. So they weren't intending on like doing that again, with him. But you know, funny that. But I think it was meant to be an homage to a character in I think decades past where they introduced them in a similar way, like around like a poker table or something, and they have the shots of them from behind. They don't reveal their face until they say their name in that way.
Oh
Yeah.
right, interesting.
I've heard something else actually that's quite interesting. Like, so I heard from somewhere else that like this is supposed to be like comedic or something, partly because the way because they're having this back and forth. So when she introduces herself, she does it like that, and then he does his name like that, kind of poking fun at her a bit, and like you can kind of like I'm not sure if when this was first released, the James Bond film was the James Bond theme plays after it. Maybe that was added in on like disc releases later, but
You think?
I'm not sure. Like that's just what I'm kind of thinking, assuming that's true, of course. That's how they.
No, I think this is pretty much
Yeah.
that is also the thing, man. The way the Bond theme just creeps in there and just bang, you know. Oh mate, and he's in the
Yeah, it's like they.
tuxedo, and he's got the cigarette. By the way, this is back when Bond smoked, so you know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very smooth. Just like flicks the cigarette lighter off or whatever. And then he's closed, and then he's like Bond, James Bond, and then that's lit. That's it. Like he's right into it. And
I'll tell you something,
Yeah.
by the way. Um, since I've become a smoker, I noticed, particularly in this film, how much smoking there is, man. Like everyone's got fag hanging out their mouth, apart from Doctor No himself, pretty much. But
Even
yeah,
Doctor
man,
No
like
smokes at some
everyone's
point.
smoking, aren't they?
Yeah, even Doctor No, like lights up a
He
cigarette.
does. You're right. Even he has a smoke. Yeah,
does he? When?
Exactly. Who doesn't have a smoke?
the dinner.
Oh yeah, he does as well.
Cigarette for dinner. Yeah. Yeah,
Mate.
even his driver has a cigarette.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah.
It was like seen as it was promoted as healthy or like what I don't
Yeah,
know.
definitely
That
some
was
advertising.
Yeah,
yeah.
well, it is,
for sure.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
still,
James Bond
that's the
smokes
fashion back
Marlboro,
then.
man.
It's not like it is today, man. Just doomers, smoking and
Filthy
stuff.
habit.
Yeah, like they literally
Yeah.
would offer him like, a box like, these are American, these are English, and these are Turkish. Like,
Yeah, exactly,
take your
exactly.
pick.
When did Bond stop smoking? I think it was Daniel Craig, right? Because I know you're going to say Pierce Brosnan, but he enjoys a Cuban cigar, doesn't he, in Die Another Day? So
I think it's like the last one that I kind of distinctly remember is like the Man with the Golden Gun. Like when he's got a huge like cigar sticking out
yeah.
when the guy
You're
gets
right.
shot.
Yeah, he stopped smoking little cigarettes, right?
Yeah.
But then Roger Moore kind of goes to cigars.
Yeah.
Does
Well, we
Timothy
can keep
Dalton
track of
smoke
his
in them?
cigarette habits.
Henry, does Timothy Dalton smoke in his films? I think
Well,
he
yeah,
might.
I know for a fact he does in his films, and there's even a famous deleted scene where he's got like where he's using the lighter as well, like the one which shoots like
Yeah,
projectile,
that's
and
right.
he lights a cigarette with that.
There you go. And then Pierce Brosnan, don't think I remember him with a cigarette, but he does
You
have
can
a cigar.
imagine him with one though, at least.
Yeah, he says filthy habit in one.
Yeah,
of those.
right.
And then later in like Die Another Day, he's got a cigar. Like,
Yeah.
complete hypocrite.
I'm sure, or because when he's with Xenia on top, doesn't he have a cigarette with her? Maybe.
I think so. Oh no,
I'm
maybe
not-
she's
She
smoking.
has a cigarette.
She
but
definitely
I'm not
does.
sure about him.
Yeah,
actually.
maybe not.
Oh, he's got to set
And
a
then
good
Daniel
example.
Craig, and then we get to Daniel Craig. He quit smoking to do Bond, so there you go. So anyway, back to Doctor No.
Yeah, like immediately right after he says his name,
Yeah.
like he continues just just being
Yeah,
chill and
wipe
cool,
her out. Yeah.
like she's like, oh, do you want to raise the limit? And he's like, no problems here. Like he like knows in advance he's just gonna win.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
What's amazing here, and then he goes on to, he beats her. She's quite a good loser. Then and then he picks her up, sort of thing, and it's just like this, has a little back and forth, and he's so smooth and suave, man. It's no wonder this, went on to become like the alpha male juggernaut that Bond symbolizes, man. He's just so, it's so like effortless with the ladies, and just he's like, I mean, the numbers on the card, sort of thing. He's just bang, and then just walks off. He's done. That's it.
yeah, it's like he's like organized. You're gonna go somewhere, and we're gonna have dinner afterwards.
So smooth, man. And there's no texting, no like back at the man. It's just like you're there, and that's it. You agree a time and a place, and simple as that, isn't it?
Yeah, back when people didn't counsel on each other.
Yeah, man. It's like, well, I mean, I always wonder that when people didn't, they just, I guess you just don't turn up, and then what do? You wait for however long, half an hour. And
Yeah,
then,
well, you might ring each other, I guess. Be like, yeah,
well,
right, I
yeah.
can't be
Find
there.
this phone booth and
Yeah, send a telegram, whatever. Yeah, man.
write a
Yeah.
letter.
Yeah, write a
Morse
letter,
code.
post a letter. Yeah, man. Anyway, so we get that. We get some numbers on the card. So then he pops off to MI6 headquarters. We see that a classic, obviously with Moneypenny throws the hat. We got all that good stuff. Moneypenny, Lois Maxwell's Moneypenny, of course. So we get our first. We get to meet her for the first time.
Yeah, the fun fact as well about her is she's actually wearing her own clothes for this because the basically for smaller roles they didn't have the money for the wardrobe, so they're just like, yeah, just put on your Sunday best, I guess.
Wow. That's interesting to me because Tom was pointing out to me a lot last night about how obviously Doctor No is meant to be Chinese, and a lot of the actors or the characters in this film are supposed to be Asian or Oriental, Chinese. But they obviously weren't. You'd have like kind of more, I don't know, like people that I don't know what those, or they have some Indian guys or something like that. There was actors there that clearly weren't Asian. But I guess that must have been a budgeting thing as well, or there was just a shortage of Asian actors for this
Or
film.
maybe they were just like, yeah, we could totally get away with this in this day and age.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I don't know. I mean, that was interesting to me. So anyway, so he
Well,
goes.
actually,
Yeah.
Lois
Moneypenny
Maxwell,
Canadian.
despite being meant to be British efficiency, Lois Maxwell is Canadian, so
Yeah, I literally.
How about
Yeah.
that? Okay. Then and then we meet Bernard Lee's M. So he's smoking the pipe. He's a bit old school like that. So
From his
that
Navy
was cool.
days, which you can assume from like his surrounding. He's got like paintings of ships and stuff. So.
Right.
yeah. And actually, I mean, again, I did not notice this whatsoever, but with M's office, again, a budget constraint for this, they actually had to construct a lot of it, the walls and so on, by painted cardboard, and they put like some sort of leathery looking like plastic film over it to make it look all legit.
Paint and stuff. Yeah. Wow.
Wow,
That's
I
interesting.
did not know that.
What I found interesting in this scene is how Bond actually he's put on the back foot in this scene. It's not often that happens with Bond, but in this, he's forced to trade in his Beretta for a Walther PPK, and he gets roasted for it as well. Right? Yeah, it's like it's a woman's gun.
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
like
much for a handbag.
It's
They're like
exactly.
roasting it, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's that's something to do with what I was going to ask you later on in the quiz, the reasons as to why and so on, because like he says, a breast doesn't have any stopping power. This was because a fan wrote in actually to tell Ian Fleming in the with his novels that
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah.
yeah, that actually, Wolf PBK would be much more appropriate for someone like 007 because, like, and actually, I think on the Blu-ray disc of this, there's and like an extra, special feature of the guy who, I'm not going to say his name because that's the question for you later.
Oh, okay.
Who actually shows the difference between the two. Like he shoots like a can of like tomato soup or something with the Beretta, and then he makes like a small hole in it, whereas like the Wolf PPK like blows it like it literally like half destroys the can just from that.
Right. Wow.
Yeah, and I wonder if you noticed, I don't know if you two noticed, but there's this quite well-known filming mistake kind of that they had with M when he says, since I've been head of MI, he's meant to say MI7, I think, but he says
Yeah.
MI6. And then they kind of like mix the two. So he's like, since I've been head of MI7, and then like, so
Yeah, that's
I
dumb.
don't know why that was. I think it was
He said MI6 and they dubbed over him with MI7
Yeah.
because they didn't want to offend the MI6 organization.
Yeah.
Oh.
Which I find interesting actually because this potentially opens up the James Bond and John English universe.
Yeah, shared
Crossed.
universe. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We'll never know. That that's interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah, I always found and you get a few lines. He says you got license to kill, not be killed. You get and Bond he very reluctantly has to leave his Brit and he even tries to sneak off with it and he goes no fucking leave it on this table, man. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
Yeah,
so
and I
yeah,
love the
get stressed down a bit there, I think.
yeah. Well, I mean, you get his mission briefing as well, which is like
Yep.
the
Oh
plot
yeah,
of
yeah,
this.
yeah. It goes, oh well, what do you know about something really minute, specific? It's like, oh, not much, and then gives a full analysis of what
Yeah,
it is.
exactly. It's like classic.
That becomes that here is the thing is here like Sean Connery does it in such a matter of fact way you can very easily miss that as being humor. What I like is when Roger Moore goes and develops it to like the nth degree, man. With like,
Yeah.
I know actually, is it Sean Connery does the butterflies later on?
No, that's George
That
Lazenby.
is Roger Moore.
No, it's George Lazenby who does it.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, he does it the best.
Yeah, he does such a
Roger
good.
Moore does
Anyway,
it a couple of times as well. Yeah.
he's just trying to be smart with him, man. It's
Yeah,
great.
trying to outsmart him. I love it.
Yeah. But the thing is as well, yeah, so his mission is like well the main problem is the Americans are like they're getting annoyed because their rockets that they're trying to send to space haven't landed on the moon by this point. Space race with the Russians. They were like, oh well, someone keeps basically using radio beams to send our rockets off track and they crash and so on. It's quite expensive, bit of an issue to deal with, and the British being best buddies with them by this point. Obviously need to give them a hand with it. And they were thinking it was coming from Jamaica. And this kind of doesn't seem like so much of an issue, like now kind of, back then the space race was like huge and so on. People are at least a lot more invested in it than, it doesn't happen anymore. So yeah, at least in this day and age.
Mhm.
But as well, this is in the same year as the Cuban Missile Crisis, and the Americans were suspecting that the Soviets or the Cubans or both were actually using Cuba to kind of mess with their space program as well. So that was kind of relevant in the day, which is why, like, you know, the this is typically what bomb plots revolve around. What the terror of that day is. Ends up being
Yeah.
more often than not, Spectre is doing the same thing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, like, what Spectre's like. I suppose it's just to cause general terror, like, and
Well, that's
like,
one of the things in the acronym, right?
yeah.
mm.
Terrorism is part of the T in Spectre, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Spectre tears for trolling.
Yeah.
Tomfoolery.
So then we get okay. So then Bond goes back to as well. You get M telling him your flight leaves at 7, so you got 3 hours 23 minutes to get on it. It's that becomes a bit of a trope as well, which I love. It's just like okay, you're just
He's
a
like,
poor
oh,
this Bond.
yeah. He rings Moneypenny as well as soon as he gets out of the office. Like, yeah, forget the usual,
Yeah,
power.
yeah, yeah.
He
Just
needs
tells
to
Bond
go,
to eat
man.
shit, man, all the time. It's quite funny.
It's funny,
Yeah.
like James Bond, when he tries to get like James Bond's, I don't know, assess James Bond's like diligence stuff. It's like, when do you sleep? And this happens in like 3 a.m. They mentioned in the film. He's like, never on the firm's time or something like that. And then he's like,
Yeah.
sit down. Like, I feel like M's impressed when James Bond like gives the answer by how he says like sit down. But
But when, sorry.
well, when
During
he
the
comes
scene.
in, he's like, happens to be 3 a.m. When do you sleep, 007? And he's like,
Never on the
never on the
firm's time.
firm's time, sir. And he's like,
Did you say
"Sit
that?
down."
I
Yeah, he
completely
did.
missed
Yeah,
it.
he does.
And
I was going to mention that line, but anyway.
yeah, it's like, and then he like Loki threatens him at one point when he's like, unless you prefer to go back to standing.
Oh
intelligence."
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
exactly.
man. Yeah. because Bond refused to give up his gun. He's like, oh yeah, unless you want to, go. Yeah, man, he bullies Bond, man, a lot. So puts him in his place, which is always interesting. So anyway, so then he goes back to his apartment, to get ready to get on his flight, and we get a bit of a fake out here, and because it's like you get some dramatic '60s, music and stuff, and what I liked is that he takes his shoes, he senses someone's in the place, and he takes his shoes off. He walks around in his socks. I like the little things they do here. I think problem with this film sometimes is there's a bit too much exposition. It's like Bond does something and then explains to you what he's doing. But this is one of those moments where you just, he takes his shoes off and he doesn't. Yeah, no, I'm taking my shoes off right now.
He looks at the camera and explains. Now this is a tactic.
That happens a lot in this film, which I was kind of like, oh, I forgot that happens. He explains a lot of stuff that's going on, but it's okay. And
for us, it's room temperature IQ audience members.
Right. And anyway, so it turned out, he kicks the door down, and it's a fake out. It's Sylvia Trench there, just wearing one of his shirts, probably nothing else. And and we just we get again another sort of trope where he's like, she's like, oh, how soon do you have to leave? Immediately, almost immediately.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Adds on an hour or half an hour.
Yeah.
Like where
appropriate. He turns up like the next day to Jamaica, and they've already destroyed the rocket.
Yeah, man.
One thing I like about the travel scene that we go into is they kind of make a thing out of looking at the plane landing and stuff, and then the airport, because back then travel was such a glamorous, luxurious thing to do. Make a thing out of it when he's going to these really distant locations for an English audience.
Exotic, definitely.
Yeah, well, and also the fact that the plane shot is also a bit of product placement, but it's still cinematically speaking quite nice to look at.
But I mean that happens for a few decades. I mean, I seem to remember that happens in Moonraker. You get a few shots
the Pan Am flight.
Die Another Day as well, I think.
Yeah, I feel like in Die Another Day's case, they're that's more of a homage because it's the 20th Bond film, right? I think that's the 40th Bond anniversary as well when that's released.
And I just remember it by the.
So they just kind of do a little
London Calling as well. Can't wait to review Die Another Day, man. Anyway, okay, now this is fun, because he arrives at the airport and it's just a sign of the times, man. Smoking in the airport, man.
It's no security, basically.
Yeah, of course, man. Back in the.
Yeah, they probably looked at the size of his suitcase and was not big enough for a bomb. Go on.
Yeah, getting nostalgic about a time I never lived in, but so Bond is immediately he walks into the jaws of death because he's got instantly 3 people in him. So we've got a random stalker who goes on to he has his Dr. He's got a photographer. He's got a photographer and he's got this chauffeur. And Bond's thinking on his feet. Obviously, he goes, I'll go and because I'm just going to go check my reservation. He finds out that obviously they didn't send him a car, so he's like, okay, this guy's dodgy, and I need to sort him out.
I love the little detective bit.
Yeah.
When I was little, these sorts of things, little conversations and stuff, just went over my head. But as I grew up, I was like, that's what he's doing, and I find it funny, how Felix Light is supposed to be this really mysterious person, but for me, when you see he's basically wearing women's sunglasses.
That was always
the rug from under his feet, and it's just kind of.
That's the fashion back then, wasn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is that I find funny is that James Bond knows this guy's dodgy, just gets in the car anyway, just to mess with him.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me, sort of thing. Sits behind him.
Right.
Completely takes control of it, and it's the thing that they kind of trope that they kind of get going with, but they actually don't do as well in some other Bond films. I think later, is the villain has a kind of entourage, kind of these little villains, they're not villains with special missions or they're just really simple people, a photographer is supposed to get information. They're really people who can blend in, and I'll make a bit more of a point of this later when we come to one of the issues James brought up when we're watching it.
So yeah, he gets in the car with the chauffeur. I've got written here car in hat. Oh yeah, when they're driving, because he's like, "Oh, we're being pursued," and they start driving really quick, and his hat is still firmly on his head. I
Yeah.
kind of always that was so blow off, man. But okay, okay. So then they pull over, they lose whoever was tailing them, Felix, like I think,
Hmm.
and then this guy's like sweating buckets, man, the chauffeur, and then as he gets back up, Bond's got a gun to his neck. Um, and yeah, just like kicks his ass, man. Basically, like I think he uses
Yeah.
judo, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
he tries to get his gun out the thing, and then he just like
right.
he's like he
Very cool.
knocks his
And
hand out.
Bond, man, he's like not even breaking. He gets the pocket square out, man. I love it. He's just like so blasé. He's like not even.
It's so routine. Like
Yeah, exactly.
it's the first time we see him fighting in this
Yeah,
series. But
it's his first kill as well.
yeah, it's not really because the guy kills himself with cyanide and cigarette.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, you're right.
But
You're right.
technically you could, yeah. But I like
yeah,
how
makes the guy kill himself.
it's so routine. Like what James
Jigsaw.
Bond says in these, he's like, "Oh, get up," and then.
Mm.
And then, like when he beats him, he's like, "Now talk," and he's just like a process for him.
Yeah,
Almost.
yeah, exactly. He's just he's so in control. I always find it quite amusing how like over the top the fight is. It's like almost
Yeah,
like watching gymnastics, right?
Yeah.
But I suppose maybe it's like something straight out of a judo class or something. I always find that a little bit. I don't know if that's realistic or not because I don't know. We're so used to seeing fights like how in a fight scene, whatever, like Jason Bourne or whatever. But back then, yeah, you had this like very and I don't. I mean, yeah, that is how it would work if you used the correct judo techniques. But I don't know.
yeah. Well, yeah. And then again, they're kicking the over the top '60s music as well during this as well.
Yeah, there's that
It's
as well.
very. I could like literally hear it playing in my head.
Yeah, me too. Like that's just etched into my memory.
So anyway, this chauffeur, he's when he's supposed to talk, he asks for a cigarette, and then one of them's got cyanide in it, so he
It's so it's
bites
so
it.
funny.
takes a
Like
suicide pill.
it's so funny. Like
Just
despite
like
the
me.
fact he like kind of presumably tried to lure James Bond to death in some capacity. He
Mhm.
like and just tried to like fight him as well. Like he still like gives him the grace of like a cigarette. That's
Yeah.
how like ingrained
Yeah,
smoking
yeah,
and
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
was in
yeah.
back then.
And yeah, I just found it interesting. Like this is what this does successfully, but I think not so much with the rewatch value because these people would rather. And Bond goes on to remark about it, later on. But we'll address it now. The fact that this guy would rather kill himself than talk. And obviously, for the sake of the film, that's the story. It's like, it's building up the tension of like Doctor No and like
Yeah.
all this stuff. But I don't really buy it. I'm not convinced the guy would really like kill himself over that. Like than talk. You
Right?
could just say a lie or something, man, or whatever. Like or disappears. It can't have been hard to disappear in the '60s, man. Like
I don't know, man. Yeah, Spectre's got people all over the globe.
Yeah.
Do you see that like through all
Mr.
these
White.
people? Like they would have.
Hmm.
Maybe. I'm still not really convinced by that, but whatever. So then Bond goes up to Government House. He pulls up with a dead body, in the back.
Yeah.
Make sure he doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and then the guy like is like, oh, all right. And then he
Yeah.
realizes like,
Double take, yeah. In the Government House, which is a magnificent building, by the way. Inside the Government House, yeah, he's there. He's having a chat with those guys, and he's, I love the language, that they use is so interesting. Is he goes, like it sounds like people how news of my arrival is leaked, and it's like, oh well, we didn't tell you. I was like, oh, I was under the impression you were selling tickets, like I found that amusing. Like he's just like really giving it to them.
Yeah.
yeah,
And then he goes over to the scene of the crime, which is where the secretary was assassinated. He does a bit of detective work there. He's looking at pictures. He finds a receipt from Dent.
does a bit of a jump cut as well.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
reminds me a bit of like an escape room, really, like just looking around the room for clues and stuff, like where to go next. Henry and I went in the escape room once, and it just
Really?
kind of when in Australia, like so you just
Yeah, I get that.
that a bit when you found like the thing from Dent Laboratories in the book somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I get those sort of vibes from this from that scene as well. Like, I don't know, maybe it's the fold out, like radio in the wall, maybe.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
So then he goes back to the hotel. you know, we got like a bit of a, you know, we see a couple of like techniques that he has to, you know, see. So he puts the hair, plucks a hair and puts it across the.
Yeah, and then talcum powder on his briefcase, you know.
For lack of talcum powder back in the day, though, I used to like try and put hair on like drawers and like wardrobes and doors and stuff.
Yeah.
And see if like someone had been through like my stuff or whatever.
I think I tried doing that once, but my hair's so light, like it just I wouldn't.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to. Yeah. I mean, I tried that too. So you know, it's the impact this film had. It's probably had like a 10,000% increase in people doing this in their homes. You know, like.
Yeah, Sean Connery was like, you know, he was balding and thought, okay, let me like not stick out so much. Let me get this trend going of people plucking their hair, man, so I don't feel so left out.
Yeah.
So then Bond goes to meet Quarrel. Now, this is our first Bond ally. I mean, kind of, we saw Felix Light, but we didn't introduce.
He's not an ally yet.
Yeah, but we do meet Quarrel. So this is the very first kind of Bond ally. We don't know he's an ally either at this moment, but you know, he's very coy. He's like not giving away too much information.
Yeah.
He's
I like this dialogue between them as well.
It's good, isn't it? I really like Quarrel.
So he's like, I'm a friend of Strangways. It's like, oh, ain't that nice? I like friends of friends, you know.
Yeah.
He's just like basically like,
yeah, he like stone walls every single one of James Bond's. He 100% knows who James Bond is.
By the way, props to Sean Connery, man. This is like the Jamaican beach. I don't know how hot it was there, and he's walking around in his grey suit. It's a brave and bold choice, man.
Yeah, Quarrel's just chilling, man. He dresses like I do, you know, like just shorts and a t-shirt, you know.
He's gonna like represent, like he's gonna be the enforcer of, I don't know, Empire wherever he goes.
Yeah, he's not like making any efforts to blend in, is he? Yeah, but
yeah, exactly.
So anyway, so he has a chat with Quarrel. Quarrel just sort of excuses himself, and Bond follows him to the bar, and he goes, "Oh well, look who it is, you know, the guy
my friend who gets the dresses mixed up."
Yeah. Some good banter there. It ends up we have the owner of the bar, Puss Fella.
Yeah,
like kind of
meant to. Well, it's meant to mean that he wrestled with an octopus or something, and then in the film they changed it to an alligator. Yeah, in the film an alligator, but in the book an octopus. So in the film his name makes no sense.
But actually, I was picked up on that because did you know there's actually no alligators in Jamaica, so he couldn't wrestle with them. And even if you do wrestle with, like, if you try to wrestle with them, it'd be very hard to like actually wrestle in traditional sense with an alligator because not only is it obviously really strong, like when they bite you or get hold of your limb, what they almost always do is like immediately twist in like the water or whatever to try and rip off the thing that you have. Like, so you got to roll with them if that scenario ever happens to you. But I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah,
good to know.
More take notes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. So anyway, so Quarrel leads him into the back, and he's like, after you, they're just like the trust, there's like they're just like both waiting for a fight to break out, basically, which is what happens. So Quarrel backs out the shank, he's like there, he's like, and then Bond's like, yeah, whatever. And then Puss Fella comes from behind him and tries to like restrain him, but then Bond just like destroys them, man. He kicks the knife out of his hand, flips them over, and they're both like on their backsides, And I was kind of like, this actually got me a little bit because I was kind of I was investing myself in the story a bit, and I was like, oh wow, he fucking destroyed them, And it's like almost to a level where it's embarrassing for them. And then he backs out with his gun, and you think, wow, Bond, man, nothing can touch him. And then bang, he walks into another gun. You're like, oh, okay, that kind of almost got me. So I was like, oh wow, it's like, it's good, isn't it?
Mm.
Keeps the suspense going a little bit.
Yep. And it turns out to be Felix Leiter. So a man we go on to become very familiar with over the following decades. What I like is Bond. He asks him where his suit is. Suit's from Savile Row, which is
which is actually where Sean Connery got his suits from. And
it's the most fashionable street in the world, arguably. So.
And the funny thing is actually, when they were getting the suits for this, like just to guarantee they'd be just perfect for they'd still look good after being in a fight and so on. The guy was like to Sean Connery, like, look, you go to sleep in this suit and you'll wake up and it'll still look great. And much to Sean Connery's surprise, it actually did.
That's amazing. So then, so then he makes a joke. I hope Puss Fella can cook better than he fights.
Yeah.
which presumably he does. So we cut to, and there's like very sort of Jamaican vibes here. So there's a party going on in this bar, and the three of them are having a chat.
Yeah, there's
So-
one. When the camera does pan, though, you see one guy's proper enjoying himself. I don't know if
yeah,
he's.
he's on the
on something,
he's on
yeah.
something for sure, man. But good for him. And then while they're having a chat, there's the flash photo is taken, and they go and Coral goes and apprehends the photographer, who we get to meet now, and
It's quite funny,
they
like
interrogate her. Yeah,
it's quite funny, like to think if that was done in like modern days, she'd just take like a phone with the flash on.
yeah, of
That
course,
video
Yeah.
would just go off.
sign of the times. Man, there's a bit where she gets this always like it grossed me out when I was a kid, man. She gets like a stone or a rock or something.
Yeah,
And,
that's
like,
the thing. I for the longest time didn't know what it was. That's a flash bulb as part of the camera.
Oh, I
right.
didn't know that.
Yeah,
Like,
it
I
was
thought
never
it was
like.
some weird rock thing which a knife somehow.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit
Yeah.
jewelry
Yeah,
or something. I
It
didn't
could
know
only
what
it could only be used once, so I assume that's why she just had them on her. So
Oh, okay, interesting.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
but Cora isn't phased, man. He's just
Yeah,
like
he doesn't flinch. when-
Doesn't he? Yeah,
Yeah.
like he doesn't care, man.
he just peeled some of his skin off. He's just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, you want me to break her arm then? And he's like, nah, next time, whatever.
Yeah, he's like second time nothing's come out, give her arm back. So
Yeah.
like she failed to get a picture of him again for
Yeah.
the second time.
So
Yeah,
she
the
gets
first-
off pretty light. He does destroy
yeah,
Cameron.
because the first time, she's like, oh, I only got your hat at the airport when he had his.
Oh
yeah,
yeah, she gives him some as well. I like that, she's like, she's not picky.
where Sean Connery had his Dr. Gordon moment, where he's like lights up the room, but then he has his hat over his
Yeah.
face.
Yeah, man.
I like how this conversation goes as well. Like they just, you limeys can be pretty touchy about transpiring. He's like, who owns this? Blah blah blah. And like he's like James Bond's losing his patience because these people are like they seem to know everything about them and like why they're there, but they know nothing about like who they're against. And it's like nothing but his name, Doctor No. And like,
Yeah, that's how it closes, and it's a callback to like when they find the file, and that kind of scene closes with just Doctor No, and then closes with him saying Doctor No. You're like, okay, this is like
Yeah, it's like because Dot's no owns Crab Key and they can't go there
it's
and
building
so
the
on.
mystery there. Okay, so then we're reunited with the three blind mice. They show up again. They nearly kill Bond, but they're just at the last second, And if they'd been successful there, then we wouldn't have 27 films in front of us. But that's Bond escaping with his life there.
get the fanfare as well to make sure that something dramatic is about.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
He goes and meets Dent, who then, bricks it. He pulls out the receipt and he's like, has a quick chat with him, and then he goes over, and then Dent goes over to Doctor No. He goes to visit him, not in person, but just to,
Still in broad daylight. Yeah, in this
happened.
scene behind me, as you can see,
Yeah.
there's Professor Dent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the construction here by Ken Adams.
It's amazing,
It
isn't
is.
it?
It is.
Set
It's so
design.
simple, but it's like so kind of, I don't know, like claustrophobic in a way. Even though it's in a big room, it's just him and
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just his voice.
Very
as well.
intimidating.
Yeah.
Even though it's like well lit, there's natural daylight and everything. It's
It's
still
like a
like
cell. Yeah. He's like a
very-
bird in a cage almost. Like he looks.
Yeah.
It makes him look tiny.
Speaking of things in cages, he picks up the tarantula, which apparently is like, it's kind of takes a bit like of the seriousness away because apparently that particular species of tarantula or whatever is like not life threatening at all if it bites you. It just kind of, I don't know, it gives you like swelling or something for a bit.
Well, yeah, but obviously they're not going to use a
but
real
cinema
like killer
goes to this point,
tarantula on the film.
Well,
still, are they?
no, I know, but like in the I don't know. Yeah, maybe they should have. I don't know. They had to use it for like filming purposes, of course.
Exactly.
But like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. I mean, think about this.
Kid. I did the job, man.
yeah,
Imagine you're a British moviegoer, man. The biggest thing you ever seen is like like your Daddy Longlegs in the corner of your room, and then like you see this
that
thing,
fish
man. Like,
comes out from like the
Yeah,
depths.
that just like I think traumatized all of us, man. Like your
Yeah, exactly.
arachnophobia kicks in when you mate.
yeah,
Terrifying.
think
and,
that's
Sean
probably
Connery
where
also had like
people
severe
like
arachnophobia as well for this. So
Sorry.
Sean Connery also had severe arachnophobia, so
Yeah, I bet you did.
that's why they had to get his stunt double to do a lot of that.
Yeah,
Oh, right.
that's how it works actually. The spider, when you see it on like the glass, that they have like a little glass
Yeah,
pane
yeah, yeah.
between him. But for the close-ups, it's a stunt double who had to have that thing actually on.
And I was gonna say is because I know Sean Connery. He's not like he's not like he's out of shape or anything, but there's big arms like that stunt double had. I kind of noticed like it's like biceps they were quite big, So I'm like, yeah, I'm
They
not sure
have
that
to
is.
do, yeah.
Yeah, but I just wasn't sure it was Sean Connery, and then that explains it. Yeah, it didn't quite. But anyway, I think we get a bit of a Sigma moment from Doctor No as well because Dent comes. He's like, yeah, I wanted to warn you, and he goes, warn me.
Yeah, I
So,
love he belittles him, man. He's like, our
Your
attempts
attempts
failed to
failed.
kill Bond. It means your attempts failed.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Then, Bond goes back to the hotel. He sees the hair's gone. He sees that his briefcase has been, rumbled, and
Yeah.
he
Goes to
even,
pull the vodka and then
and then pulls. He's like, this might be smart. Let me just get my back up.
yeah,
Poor
it's a
old
new
Bond man. He
bottle.
has to buy 2 bottles of everything, just in case.
Hmm.
Anyway, so then he goes to have a kip, and then the spiders. This is the worst murder weapon ever, by the way. Just like, what's Doctor No trying to do? He's like setting Dent up to fail, man. Like, like just put the spider in his room, and hopefully he won't just crawl up into the corner or down a drain or something, man. He's gonna
Yeah,
call.
exactly.
He leaves it under the covers and everything though. Like the spider's probably not going to go anywhere. I'm not sure if it's warm and like cozy for it. It's not. I don't know.
He's
I think they were
Jamaican,
just capitalizing on like general like English ignorance. Like if they see something that's like threatening looking, that's just gonna. It's like, oh no, yeah, he's screwed if that thing bites him basically. So, yeah.
Still, I think for this scene, especially when we were younger, I just think it still works pretty well.
Oh
does,
yeah, it's so
The
tense,
music
man.
as
Well,
well.
and you see Sean Connery, he's like sweating, and everything. He's like,
Yeah. He sells
it's
it.
very convincing. But then it's kind of like a little bit spoiled, man, by like the music and like the synchronized with him hitting the thing. And it's like, it's just, I don't know, I just don't like it. I know it's like 60s, but still.
I don't know. I thought
At
it was
least though, at least it's not the only time they use that music. They use it later on, so I'm like, okay, I kind of.
yeah. Also, I respect. Did he use hit the butt of his gun, or did he like have a hammer next to his bed or something? He just
I think it
keeps
was
there,
Buck's gun.
Oh,
Like
I thought it was a slipper maybe or something.
maybe something like that. But he it
His
wasn't.
fist.
Yeah, no. What I find pretty grim is like how it took multiple hits to kill as well. So and I think it was something I can't quite remember correctly, but I think maybe one of the novels like might mention that he actually does have arachnophobia, and after he kills the spider, he's like really violently ill, and you kind of see that in the film a little bit as well because he goes into the bathroom, you see him like briefly like touch his stomach like he's about to throw up, and then just changes scene.
Interesting.
If this is if James Bond had been an American character, he'd have lit that spider up, man. Like
I'd have lit the house up, man. Do you know what I mean? I'm not, mate.
If
No
you
way,
see
man.
it,
just shoot him to death.
it was already on him, so like crawling up. Yeah.
Mate. I'd have quit there and then, man. Anyway, so then he goes over to the government house again, and he catches the secretary eavesdropping, which is quite so bait, man. She's like there, and then
Yeah, exactly.
She's like kneeling
A
down.
whole
and
plot
tries
of
to
this is
like deny it as well.
Yeah, I was just looking for these files, and he's like, "Of course."
Yeah. And he goes, picks her up as well. He's like, yeah, let's meet her. And she's like, oh, what do I do? And a strange man asks me. He's like, yeah, you should say yes. It's like, okay.
Yeah, Sean Connery, dating tips.
Yeah, man. He's like, yeah, but sure, he's so full of swagger and confidence. It's like you can't say no to him, really, can you? Anyway, then we go meet them back on the beach. They're checking out the boat, Coral's boat, and they're trying to work out again detective work. They've got a Geiger counter there, and they're trying to look where the rocks were, and it's like radioactive. So they kind of put two together with Dent because Dent said the samples weren't radioactive when Bond went there. So that's a cool bit of detective work once again. And then they start talking about a dragon.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's a
there's
dragon
also
on Crab Key.
yeah. So
I think it's like it really adds to I don't know the intimidation Doctor No tries to put up around him. Like he's got people like really everywhere. He's got like people in the guy's office like looking through the files. He's got people with camera. Well, he's got people supposedly working as reporters going around, fake chauffeurs, everything. So you can get why like they're like so terrified and like intimidated because like if they like rat him out or something, that's it for them and
Mhm.
whoever they have like in their lives, probably as well. So
Mhm.
I think
Yeah,
it
you
would
could
have
have.
the atmosphere of the villain.
Yeah, you could have hotel staff on payroll. Even if you go to your Premier Inn, you might just get killed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Or find
it's a
someone
strange
like your
deployment
car.
system.
And while we're on the subject with Spectre, obviously Spectre's something which goes on to for better or worse,
Yeah,
return further on down the line, Henry.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's a word which means so much more now, doesn't it?
yeah.
And anyway, I think what is cool though is just because in Quantum of Solace, and whether you view the Daniel Craig films as a reboot or not is irrelevant because Spectre does come on. Actually, no, they do it before they call it Spectre, and he's like, Mr. White in Quantum of Solace at the beginning. He's like, we have people everywhere,
Yeah.
don't we?
That's when it
And
was
then
still
bang, so
quantum.
it's like,
Yeah,
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 we'll talk about that for Cosmos.
yeah. I just think it's just interesting that this kind of even that kind of thing is set up in this film.
Yeah.
well, yeah.
Um,
I
Well,
wonder if it's
also,
intentional.
just a quick question before we move on. Do you reckon that Spider had a positive KD ratio or not? Or was that his like first job and it failed?
I'm not sure. I feel like I
did he
don't.
go through training for that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
was he on payroll?
yeah. I like to think that like Spectre might have because the villains sometimes have these dangerous pets as well. Like they just have like
Yeah.
this zoo of like really dangerous animals, and they just take one out when they need it, and then throw it.
Yeah, like from Russia with Love, when they've got like the training camp, they've got like one specifically for all the deadly pets they have,
Yeah.
It's the thing
including
is, it's like
Blofeld's cat.
like you don't see this in the film, but those spiders can actually move really really fast. Like, so yeah, I don't know whether it'd have been best to have it crawling on James Bond or have it run out from under a curtain at him or something. But that might have been
Yeah,
anti-climax.
but it might have been a bit dumb, like watching him like run around the room trying to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
So then, anyway, the secretary calls him, the eavesdropper, and she's like, "Yeah, come to my place." So he's like, "Oh, Bond's not going to
Yeah,
say
it's
no
got
to
like
that."
got a sick view of the mountains. Am I
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
she like gives him directions as well. She's like
Right.
a
Well, yeah.
TomTom
No Google
sapper.
Maps, man. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
must have been
Um,
how it was back then.
and oh yeah, and then so he gets on his bike, and then we get our very first ever, no, actually second Bond car chase. This is
mm.
the first one where he's behind the wheel because kind of the chauffeur that was like a
Yeah.
Yeah,
mini.
behind the wheel and behind the green screen.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, the worst green screen of all time,
Yeah,
man.
like
man. But to be
no,
fair though, for '62, even talking about green screening, man,
no,
like,
no,
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 but
no,
come on,
no.
Henry. We watched Batman '66. Even that had like better effects than
Yeah,
this.
like
yeah, that's true.
apparently like other films back at the time had like they didn't have such like glaring green screens behind, like they had green screens of course, but like it wasn't as like so poorly done as that, like even at the time. So at the time it must have looked disappointing as well, but maybe that was budgeting. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, I
You
think this
know
is a
what's
good
the problem with
chase.
it is Sean Connery oversells it. He's oversteering. He's got all these expressions and stuff, man. It's just that's what doesn't match up. If he was a bit more, I don't know. I mean, probably the directions he was given was like it's just something that aged very poorly.
Yeah.
Well, I know.
So
I still think it's an alright chase as well. For some reason, for the longest time, I didn't realize like that those are the three blind mice in the hearse. Like, I don't know why.
yeah, they are. I kind of I never really put that together until
That's
now.
kind of their ride though, so like I
Yeah.
never had any problems realizing that that was them. Like I don't know why they were trying, like I don't know what they were planning to do in the car chase, like off-road him or
Yeah,
something,
man, they could push them off the
or
cliff.
just
Trying to
like
shoot him, weren't
shoot
they?
him maybe
Yeah.
drive by. But what I do like is that like when they finally go over the hill and like burst into flames, which is just standard for anything that like crashes back then. Is like how James Bond gets his very first kill pun.
Yeah.
He's like, we're on their way to a funeral, and then the guy's just like,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, may I say, does this remind you of any other films where there's a car crash on a mountainside
Hmm.
with a large piece of
Possibly think. Yeah.
yellow construction equipment on the road blocking
Yeah.
it?
That's funny for me, like how he gets because his car is just low enough to like squeeze under that thing, and then
Yeah, if
theirs
this is a
isn't. So,
DB5, maybe not.
yeah, very lucky then I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then Bond shows up to the secretary's house in like emphatic fashion because she's just like, oh, like I didn't expect you here so soon. He's like really caught her with her trousers down, almost literally, and you know. So anyway, so he bangs her, and then like he's like, yeah, and then the first thing you see after he's, he's like,
He's basically trying to ejaculate and evacuate,
yeah, man, he's like, blow your load and hit the road, man. But before he does, he goes, oh, well, I'm hungry. It's like the
Yeah,
first thing. He's like,
yeah,
yeah.
let's go to an
He's sat
Italian
there, man,
place.
cigarette. He's chilling there. He's like, yeah, man, on top of the world, And he's like, I'm hungry, like proper man.
Yeah. So she's like, oh, I can make you some food at home. Definitely not because I'm waiting for
Yeah,
Den.
yeah,
It's like
Yeah.
2 hours late. Stuck in rush hour to kill you. But
It's quite funny, like how she go like the phone rings and that's obviously like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and then
yeah.
can you imagine if James Bond was like while they were doing it in the bed and then James Bond picked up like hello and like
Yeah. That's amusing as well. I mean, like, and just the fact that he definitely overhears the whole conversation. And it's like
She's so
those walls are
terrible.
paper thin, man. Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So,
yeah. She's like whispering, and then she's like, okay,
I
I
have
have
to
to
go
go
now.
now. Like,
yeah.
so
But
bait,
anyway,
man.
Bond still gets to
He doesn't even care. Like he can see there's a trap being laid, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll just hang around here for a bit anyway."
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
Bond's
there's a
not gonna
trap
miss
being
an
laid here.
opportunity, though, is he?
Might lay one of my own. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so oh yeah, and he even calls a taxi as well straight away, man. He's like, you know, he's like so out of there, man. And it's funny because I almost got was like, yeah, why does he call a taxi? Because he's already got his car there, and it's like it turns out it's for her.
He
So
doesn't have a car.
yeah, he does.
Actually,
How do you think he got there?
Engine
He
trouble.
just gives her an excuse, fobs it
Yeah.
up, and then
Yeah, exactly. And then she's like, "Oh, that explains why." And he's like,
yeah. That's right. And she spits him in the face, so it does.
"Yes, actually, that's the
Yeah.
another interesting thing is that's the only time a woman has ever it's basically assaulted James Bond without him responding,
Yeah.
To
retaliating. Yeah,
be fair, he just completely had her in his net, so there was nothing else like he didn't need at all. Be careful of her nail varnish, not.
Yeah. So anyway, so what Bond's busted nut and left the hut pretty much,
yeah,
and so he sits there and he waits for Dent. So
yeah.
because
He's like he stuffs a pillow a pillow under the blankets, and he's like, "Yeah, this is like." He does it in like 5 seconds. Like, yeah, he doesn't even check to see how legit it looks. Do you reckon there's like, delete scene of him walking in pretending to be dead? And he's like, oh yeah, actually I should adjust that. His head looks like it's broken.
Yep.
That's like these villains like. Maybe I don't know. They do stuff so kind of they execute stuff so poorly. Like sometimes it's just like, yeah, I'm not gonna make sure he's dead. I'm gonna empty my gun into him, and yeah, and presumably he's like gonna kill what's her name for pigs. Not Sylvia Trench. What's her name? Miss Tower.
Yeah.
That's it. The secretary as well. And even though she's on like their side, I mean, yeah, you'd
Lost
have to
one too
hope
many
that
files.
she doesn't like catch a few there, but yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so he sat there waiting for, and he's like, and this is what I really appreciated upon this viewing. He's like he's playing cards against himself with like a dummy hand. It's like this is because he wins every card game. You're like, it's just a Bond thing, but actually, he puts in the hours, man. You got to respect that. He puts in the practice. It doesn't just happen from overnight. He's like, he knows his stuff, man, and you get to see a little bit about it. I appreciated that.
Yeah, I like that as well. But like, this is again probably one of the best scenes in the film as well. Just like,
Yeah.
because like, Den comes, he shoots. He's like probably like bricky. He's like, oh, he's probably hatched this
This is
plan.
the thing. What you mentioned earlier is like Dent has got desperate now, and this is the thing. So this is why the actual attempts to kill Bond become like sloppier and sloppier because they just become more and more desperate.
Yeah, because he was already meant to kill him with the tarantula as per Dr. No's request, and then he's like, right, I got to think of something real quick. Oh, he's gonna bang my secretary. Let me head up over there real quick.
Yeah.
Oh, 3 blind mice went down the hill. Well, too bad for them.
Yeah, they're going one after the other at this point, aren't they?
Yeah. So then Dent shows up. He fires 6 rounds into the pillow, and then Bond closes the door behind him. And the guy he drops his gun and he's like, I love Bond's just full of confidence, man. And you don't really know why because he sat there for the time. You think, oh man, what was it? How's he not seen him reaching for the gun and stuff? And he pulls it up and then click, it's empty. He's like, yeah, that's a Smith and Wesson. You've only got 6. Now it's my turn.
No,
Bang, bang.
had your 6, and he just
So good.
shoots him twice, man.
Yeah.
That was apparently later that was seen as a bit controversial because how brutal it was, but yeah, I guess he's like kind of bitter because of
That's it, man.
Strangways. Yeah, he just
Bond's, that's what he's just an efficient assassin.
he's efficient.
That's what he
Well,
is.
Well,
efficient.
Yeah.
if he was efficient, the most efficient assassin would only need one bullet.
Well,
Yeah, we'll get
just
onto that later.
there's one for
Yeah.
strangling as well, you know.
He's very very yes, very Sigma moment where he's so calm and collected. He's
Yeah.
like, you've had your six.
Yeah, it's very good.
I want to play a game.
Let's do it.
I have 7 questions for you and Tom.
Okay.
And these are all actually basically in what you could say chronological order. So, first of all, who was actually in the gun barrel of this film?
Oh, I thought these were going to be numerical questions.
Some of them are.
Who's in
Some
the
of them
gun
are.
barrel?
I think it's like a stunt double, but they don't I forgot his specific name, but for a few of them they didn't actually have Sean Connery doing it.
I'm gonna
think-
guess.
Not sure.
I'm gonna guess Terrence Young. Why not?
No, I think I might give the point to Tom because it is Sean Connery's stunt double, but his name is Bob Simmons. So,
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
Go on then.
All right. Now
This is
that's 1 to Tom, 0 to James. How much was Sean Connery paid for being James Bond in this?
Oh, I think I know this. I think it's well, the thing is, when you're doing these questions, how are you going to distinguish?
Whoever gets closer.
Yeah,
He's got a
Yeah.
number, so whoever gets closer.
I think it was about 100K at the time, and then I'm not sure about how that was inflation adjusted. I think it was 0.1 million, 100,000 pounds.
I haven't got a clue.
Do you think it's higher or lower,
You've got more of an
James?
idea than me, so I'm going to go. Since whoever's close, I'm going to go with £99,999.
All right. Well, okay. Well, James is closer in that regard because it was actually $16,000.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew it wouldn't be that much.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know. I just looked on some Wikipedia page. Maybe that's.
Okay, that's all right.
Anyway,
One.
well, I mean, they only had 1 million quid for the budget, so anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe
So
that was
it's like
inflation
10% of the budget.
adjusted. I'm not sure.
Okay, so for question 3, do you know where Strangways, Dent, and the others were playing bridge?
What do you mean where? Like
What's the
name
what's
of
the
the
name?
house?
What's the name of the club?
I think. Oh, I think I know this. You could try.
You're first to answer.
Oh, if it's first to answer, then I can't remember.
I think it's Queen's Club. Is that it?
That's right. It's the Queen's Club.
Okay,
Thank you.
2-1.
Yes.
All right, it's 2-1. Who is the name of the fan who wrote to Ian Fleming?
I know this.
All right. Well, actually, they say it, or at least who's the character who basically is Q in this? What's his name?
Boothroyd. It's Major Boothroyd, and I forgot his first name.
It's another one for Tom.
Oh, fuck, man.
Unlucky.
All right, 3-1 then.
I mean, yeah, the fan's name was Jeffrey Boothroyd, but Major Boothroyd, is sufficient.
Mhm.
Right, in Doctor No's lair, you probably know this, or at least heard of it. There's to us it looks a bit strange, but there's a bit where he's going up to dinner and then he realizes he's got this painting, right?
Oh
James,
man,
when
I
we were
literally asked Tom this yesterday. I didn't know it was.
And I said
Alright.
I'll tell him on the podcast.
Do you know?
basically-
So that
I-
was a painting that was stolen in
I
1961.
know. I know. Can I answer? Because I know this and I want to
Alright, go on.
What's
You want to make a meal of it? Go on.
They're I think it's Wellington or something. They got a painting that was in the British Museum, and it went missing basically that year, and that was or something like that, and that was a really hot topic.
Yeah,
And so,
1961 event, yeah.
They didn't find it until much later, but
Mhm.
they kind of decided to throw a bit of humor in with it,
Oh.
and for the audience at the time,
Yeah.
an English audience, and then just say, "Oh yeah, Doctor No definitely stole it.
Cool.
And just had it there."
Cool.
And
That's really interesting.
there's a fun fact about that as well. That was well, obviously it wasn't the real one they had. There was a production piece, and that one actually got stolen as well. So,
Wow.
Didn't know
Alright.
that.
the
Tom's
the
making
last,
4-1, so I've lost. But for pride, let me try and get
it's
some.
4. It's currently 4-1 to Tom.
Yeah. So he's
Alright,
won.
6
It's best of 4,
Yeah.
right? But
This is So the 6th question is: how many deaths were there in this film?
What?
This is
the Bond kills or
it total like deaths, like kills. I'm not including like one where he near the end where he like nicks the uniform off of a guy because
okay.
in the lab because I'm not really sure
It's
if
the
he just
bod,
knocked him out
basically
or
the body
killed.
count in the film, including the cyanide guy and all that,
Yeah,
and the
including him.
secretary and stuff. Okay.
Does that really count though? Because he doesn't kill the.
No, it's not Bond's count. It's the film's body count.
Oh,
The film's
I'm
count.
gonna
she
go
doesn't die, does
with
she just gets
the
arrested.
secretary gets shot.
She gets
No,
shot.
the first one,
Oh,
Strangway's
yeah.
one.
Body count.
I'd say. I'm gonna go with whoever's closer. All right.
I think.
There's another. If you both get the same answer, then I've got something first.
Tiebreaker.
I think it's.
I've lost either way,
I think
so I
it's.
don't.
I think it's 7 maybe.
Oh,
From what I can think of,
I'm gonna go with.
the total body count that is.
Oh man, I just don't know. I've lost anyway. I'll say. Let me think. I'll say 6.
No, Tom is close. It was 10.
10. I got
Yeah.
Strangways, the 3 blind mice who go over the
Oh
cliff.
yeah.
Dent, Doctor No himself, spoilers, and
Quarrel.
I forgot about Quarrel actually,
Oh.
and a couple
Yeah,
of
the
others.
cyanide guy. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Yes. All right.
to be
5-1
fair,
then.
the last question is probably the most brutal of them all. But James, you might have paid more attention to this. How many cigarettes did James Bond light and smoke in this?
Oh, what a great question. How many cigarettes did he light?
Yeah, because most of the time they're lit, but he doesn't always
Yeah.
smoke them.
I'm gonna say 4.
Tom?
I'm lost. I think I'll say 5. I don't pay attention to this sort of thing.
Well, Tom, you actually got the exact answer. It's 5
Did
cigarettes.
I?
5. Oh man.
Wow.
All right.
I'll
There you go.
take it.
Someone destroyed me on this first round, man. 6-1.
6-1 to Tom.
Gonna
I,
have to
I
up my
was
game.
kind of worried you're gonna. I'll take it. I'm happy.
Yeah, and this is going to be an ongoing thing throughout the series.
Yeah.
So every week we're going to have
I
prepare some questions for me against Tom, and then we'll have an event. The tally will keep going. So now it's 1-0
Yeah.
to Tom.
I
Okay.
get to exercise my license to quiz, which is I think what we'll call it.
License to quiz, nice. Okay, cool. So back to Doctor No. So they get on the boat. Bond and Felix Leia and Coral. Light gives him shit 'cause he's like, yeah, we've been waiting for 2 hours.
Yeah. It's
Um,
better late than never, you know.
while Bond's been busy fill it with
Banging.
pump, then leave the slum. It's one more for free there. And then yeah, so he gets in the boat. They all get in the boat. Quarrel's getting wasted, and is like whatever he's got in that bottle, in that jug.
Yeah, I would if I was
If you
going to
had that
Crab
with
Key,
you, you'd probably get bored and drink.
Yeah, Lighter eats shit as well because he waited for 2 hours and then just gets left behind anyway.
Yeah, well,
I like how it's.
He's like, yeah, we'll just call you when we need your American cavalry, man. Like classic English-American interaction there.
It's funny though because this is really it's basically America's problem, right? And then James Bond.
Well, no, because Strangway gets shot and he's
Strangway,
obviously
but
British agent.
it's kind of that kind of throws England in, but James for the rockets, which is
and it's British territory as well.
Yeah, that's true actually. So that would be an issue for them.
Yeah.
But there's the rockets and stuff, and then their own agent is taking a side role, which I find quite funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they turn up to the Crab Key beach. They sleep rough for the night. And obviously then they wake up to the other iconic moment from this film, which is Honey. They wake up. Bond wakes up to Honey singing the Mango Banana song, whatever it's called.
Yeah,
And,
underneath the mango tree, and she pops out.
Pops out of the sea, bikini, proper, everyone knows this moment. Bond's got a great line here, and she goes, "Oh, we doing looking for shells?" And he goes, "No, I'm just looking." And so they get acquainted.
And actually, this is something that you might find quite interesting, James, specific, and also Tom.
I know what you're going to say. Can I guess?
This scene was actually filmed quite close to Ian Fleming's actual house. The house called Goldeneye. And at the time, he was chilling with some of his friends there, including Noel Coward, who
What's that?
he
He
stayed
plays
for
Mr.
the
Bridger in the Italian Job.
Oh
yeah
wow.
he stayed for the day, and he actually gave Sean Connery a bit of advice on acting and dealing
Oh.
with press and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
That's so cool.
Yeah,
I
Mr.
wanted to give
Bridger
you a little
would
bit
do
of
that.
here's a little bit of trivia you might not know about Henry.
Try
So, Alex Ryder was named after Honey Ryder. Like
oh
Anthony Horowitz wanted to pay tribute to Honey Ryder. She's his favorite sort of Bond character, and so to pay tribute to her, he named Alex Ryder after her. Just
I
spelled
respect to
backwards.
that.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't. I actually didn't.
There you
I mean,
go.
I knew that there's a similarity between Spectre and Scorpio, but still.
Oh, yeah, that's like not obvious at all. But yeah, so and if you don't know about Alex Ryder, ladies and gentlemen, you didn't have a childhood.
Well, you
So
probably
then,
weren't in the UK, so.
yeah. So then, what more have we got to say about this scene? With Honey,
There's just
I don't really think there's anything we can say that hasn't been said before, but
Yeah, it's amazing and
'60s, wasn't it?
yeah, and
I think that did a lot for bikini sales as well. I think.
Yeah,
in
the
fashion,
explain sales like exploded after this, man. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it would have done. Like, I find it funny though. Like later when she has like the shells with her, and she's like, she makes like a thing about it's like this is worth $50, and then I was like 50, and like makes a point of it, and then I wonder like that probably would have a lot more now, of course, but like
No,
it's just
still,
funny about inflation.
if I found a shelf for 50 quid, man, I'd be jumping over them in for it.
Shell I found in what was it, Australia, New Caledonia was like more than that. So I
Really?
wanted, yeah, back then it was
Yeah,
like
it's north of the shell.
How much
yeah.
was it worth?
It was like it ranges like 100 maybe to I've seen ones going for like 500.
Oh, okay.
They're supposed to be very rare actually. I looked it up after finding it. Like,
Nice.
oh, what's
Yeah.
the most rare shell? And
Have you still got it?
I do. It's in the flat.
Oh, okay.
Nice
Fair
to
enough.
know.
Anyway, so then a gunboat shows up and Quarrel's like, yeah, let's bounce.
Yeah, let's get behind like
Yeah,
some
let's
sand.
get down. And that's exactly what they do. And the gunboat comes along and threatens them and then shoots at them and there's all
They hit
that
nothing.
back and forth. Yeah, and
There's
really bad ADR where the
yeah,
guy's
exactly.
like,
The guy as well. Yeah, I know. This is like he's like speaking through the mic. He's like, "Oh yeah, we'll be back with the dogs." And then like he like puts the mic down and he says full speed ahead, but he's like the sound as if he's still like using the mic, which is like the megaphone actually.
Yeah, that's like that's really like it's really like known that that's like a really bad filming mistake. It's not really bad, but like anyone would notice it. But
Yeah.
and one thing I found really grim is a bit grim, a little detail almost, like when he tries like mowing them down like behind the sandbar, like we see them like slowly get back up again. Like, there's this crab that's going along.
oh yeah,
And like you see it walking along all fine and stuff before, but after the thing's going, I think it's missing one of its claws and like it's dragging a leg behind as well when it's thing. So like when Craw noticed it, I'm like, oh, maybe that poor git basically took a bullet.
Oh, you reckon?
Yes.
I never noticed that.
I was
Wow.
like,
Well, that yeah,
I thought it was just
call back
comedy
to that
moments.
poor. Yeah, that porpoise, took a
Oh,
missile
yeah.
for us,
Yeah, not the first time we've seen an aquatic animal take a bullet for our hero. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then oh yeah, okay. So then they're they decide to bounce. Basically, they're going to look for
Yeah.
something. And
Honey's
Honey's
hiding
boat
spot.
gets shot through as well.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I know a place where I can hide, and then they're like, right.
Yep. So they go in the swamp because they're going to throw off the scent of the dogs. Bond makes a makeshift. We're going to rank the gadgets, and I know there aren't really any gadgets in this film, but maybe I'll nominate the reed. Like the bamboo schnorkel.
Yeah, the bamboo reed.
I've been on a yeah. Like they don't have. I'm pretty sure loads of it doesn't make sense. Like I've been on a diving course and like they use like first of all I'm not sure you can actually breathe through bamboo and like if it was it'd have to be perfect bamboo that's not like split down the side. So
Well, no, because it's like cylindrical, right? So it's like a pipe.
Yeah,
basically,
but
isn't it?
we've like the bamboo, like we know, it'd have to be the perfect thickness to have enough for them to like breathe through.
Well, yeah.
Some bamboo's really thin, and so like it would be really difficult to breathe through. And nonetheless, like the way they hold it in the water to breathe out of it, they'd have to have like their faces like directly staring up at the surface because they'd have to have it like it's hard to show because I'm not on camera, but
Yeah.
like they'd have to be like looking directly up, and then that of course that wouldn't be very helpful for like if people were coming by and they had to look around for who got close to them. And one thing that like really like weirds me out a little bit in this scene is like I looked at the subtitles when watching it sometimes, and it's like James Bond kind of makes a thing about not kicking up too much mud because then they'll know someone's there. But what I don't get is if the water's clear, they'll see it'll be really obvious that you're just kind of there, like 1 foot underneath it. And then like
They're wearing like colourful shirts.
they are.
Yeah, exactly. Quarrel
And even
like
Quarrel's,
literally
wearing
like a
red, like they'd easily see them. So like, if anything, it would be better to kick up mud around you so they don't see it. And the place is murky anyway, so like it's just a bit weird.
Well, because they hide under the reeds basically, or the overgrowth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they're sheltered by that
Yeah.
as well. But
Do you reckon there was a bit of colour coordination in their outfits, having red, white, and blue? You know.
yeah, maybe that didn't go unnoticed. Yeah. So then as well, yeah. So then they lose it. Oh, there's a guy there as well who they leave behind just in case they resurface.
Yeah, and
Who Bond, stabs and kills, and Honey's
yeah.
grossed out by that. It's kind of the only time we actually see someone like normal in the film, like disgusted by his actions, But
Yeah, Coral's just like, yeah, I've seen this before,
yeah, Crawl's like, oh, I wish it was me, man.
Yeah.
And Bond just dispatches of this guy. Um, then they settle down for the night basically, and Honey. So we get a bit of Honey's backstory now
Yeah.
about like they find some dragon tracks first, actually, supposedly, which is
Yeah.
obviously like from a tank or whatever. And Honey tells a story about how her dad, and she's educated from the encyclopedia, and her dad and stuff like went missing, and then she tries to get help about that, and then some guy had tried to basically rape her, and then she got her revenge by like planting a black widow on him, so pretty brutal.
Yeah,
And Bond just in his classic understated English tone just, well, it wouldn't do to make a habit of it.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
it's funny. Like, is it like maybe a preferred assassination method back then to like put spiders where people sleep and stuff? Because
Yeah, it's one of the
Yeah, it
first
must have been a
ones.
trendy thing at the time. Yeah, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
It's
no,
like
I mean,
you're not a real villain if you don't use deadly insects on people.
exactly. I've got
Or
my villain pet
arachnid.
right here, so
Yeah.
Anyway, so then, so Honey gives her the story. They go and okay, so then basically they end up facing the dragon itself, which just turns out to be like something out of the
Yeah.
'60s Batman show.
Yeah, it's a swamp buggy that they put like metal sheets on,
I
basically.
thought it was a tank.
I know, like, but the actual vehicle they used in the filming was a swamp
Oh, right, okay.
buggy.
What's it, Henry? What like?
It was a swamp buggy that they put metal sheeting around.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know how that could have fooled literally anyone into being a
well,
dragon.
that's because like there's probably like I don't know, probably shot fire from somewhere once without moving.
Yeah, and it's probably they only bring it out in the dark at night and
And
stuff.
then
So.
Dot know probably like, yeah, there's a dragon here, and then
Yeah.
get whoever to spread the rumor. Maybe he got the photographer who works at the newspapers. Like,
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. What do you reckon they had like I don't know, do you reckon Doctor No has like a live camera feed from it, just like seeing it barbecue people or something?
Yeah.
Maybe.
But
we
so
said
then,
goodbye to Quarrel.
yeah,
so-
unfortunately,
Rip Quarrel,
he
man.
bites it, man. He's our sacrificial lamb of the film. He gets toasted, literally, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and this ends up happening with a lot of Bond allies who bite the dust. He doesn't really care that much. I mean,
Yeah.
he doesn't. It's just like it's over, and it's like okay, he's dead now.
Yeah,
He's
that's a shame as
there's not
well.
really
Oh
much-
no, actually no, he does mention Quarrel again later, where he's like, I want to find out. Yeah, I want to get revenge on the person who kills.
Yeah,
Frank
that's true.
Quarrel.
That's true.
Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah, Quarrel, I really liked him as a character in this film.
Yeah, he was the MVP here, man. And
Goes out
what I think is
unceremonious,
interesting as
so-
well is because this is back in the day in the '60s, and obviously, with like representation, diversity, and stuff, it wasn't where it was now. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Bond was quite at the forefront in terms of, being this kind of this scale of a film and this kind of the start of big franchise. I think Bond's been usually over the decades been very good at representing and having that sort of diversity, and that begins. Quarrel's kind of the very start of that. Now Quarrel does end up receiving some pretty when Bond tells him to fetch his shoes and stuff. That's a little bit that hasn't aged well, let's say. But at the same time, it's quite pioneering in a sense that he was, Bond's ally at the beginning, and he's like, sort of set the trend.
Yeah, I don't think if you ask the actor, like, if he would not do it, again, he probably would. So.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was the times back then, but still, it's one of those things. We watch it now and we're like, oh, okay, that doesn't really sound very good. But
I mean, to be fair though, when I did, when I was looking at American history, some of their films they put out at the same time, and it's like
there you go, yeah. And you've got Coral plays quite not like a headline, but he's still like a prominent role in the film, and he's like a Bond buddy,
He's like all their ground knowledge and stuff.
That's right. Yeah, because he even like they say, oh well, okay, we'll just get directions. He's like, no, the directions are my senses, and all that.
Instincts. Yeah. Like it's really I like how they pay tribute to him later with like Coral Jr. Like, that's like really first class treatment compared to a lot of other allies who just get killed off and that's it.
Yeah.
So it's not bittersweet kind of.
Yeah. So Coral, fondly in our memories, I think there he's memorable performance for sure. Fortunately, he bites the dust at this moment. And then we get like where Bond starts getting quite sci-fi, I think, for like 60s sci-fi.
Yeah.
All the same. These guys jump out of the tank with like hazmat suits, and they take down Bond, and Honey as well. So they get frog marched into the tank effectively. They show up in Dr. No's base. Now they're like underground, whatever. They get decontaminated. They go through the shower. So that happens.
Yeah, that's chilling.
And then so they're like put through this pretty like, I guess, humiliating process, whatever. So like to get decontaminated basically, and they're being measured with Geiger counters and stuff.
And then they go through to their hotel room basically.
Well, even before that, there's like a really horrific moment where the one door shuts on them. They're sort of in an airlock zone, which looks like a cave, and it looks like really kind of
they've been left there to.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, like these James Bond films, like back in the day, and other films, there's like a trope of like checking behind you, and then like if you don't look, the door just gets locked or whatever, and then like I don't know, that just kind of shook me when I was little. Be aware of that.
But luckily, the other hatch opens, and some very nice people greet him. They offer him the cigarettes, as you mentioned earlier, Henry.
Yeah, 3 different kinds.
Yeah,
I wonder like how these people like ended up in that job as like they're just like villain hideout, what hospitality stuff.
Yeah, receptionist.
So anyway, so then they get shown where their rooms are, separate rooms, of course.
Yeah. The thing is that I find as well, what were they going to do if Quarrel was alive, or if Honey Rider had been killed or something?
Yeah, I think Honey Rider didn't need. I don't know why they brought her along, man. Like I mean, obviously for the sake of the film and like.
Well, she couldn't. Well, they didn't. Her boat was like shot. So.
Yeah, but for the rest of no, I'm talking about Dr. No's men. They had no interest.
Oh yeah.
It's because she's like a witness, and like maybe Dr. No will decide whether to like get rid of her or not.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe he's running human experiments with radiation or something like.
Well, we'll get on to that later.
He's finding the person to like get like a hand replacements from
Yeah, hand transplant. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then they sit down, they have a cup of tea, and it's spiked.
Yeah,
so they
from empty cups. Yeah.
Yeah. So they go ahead. Yeah, that's right. So they go ahead and get knocked out.
Yeah. Just quickly, like the point you asked me last night about how they found out their clothes sizes, like we only got your measurements last night, but they like weren't even like there last night. So the way I kind of piece it together is maybe Dr. No has like a whole like counterintelligence network on the island, and like they find out stuff like that, and they're really like down to earth roles, kind of like drivers,
geologists.
Geologists, photographers, like all these other people, like all these people, even beggars, like literal beggars going around. And like it wouldn't be too hard to like it wouldn't suspend disbelief too much to think that he had like hotel worker or something find out. And from Honey Rider maybe just got generic like average clothes for like any woman that might be there, but
he just knows he'd pulled someone along with him somehow.
It's a stretch, but like counterintelligence wise, maybe he had that room for like any woman prisoner that might end up there. We don't know, but I think that's like kind of satisfactory for me in a way, and we do see it like later when when he mentions like you've not contacted your headquarters since you requested a Geiger counter, like that kind of backs it up a bit because he finds out, so he must have had other people working and stuff in these places, and he can find out stuff with it. Like he has his own counterintelligence, which is pretty villain to have, I think.
Well, actually, I personally thinking about it, that you remember when James Bond put his hair on like the his wardrobe, in his hotel room. I reckon Professor Dent. Not only was Professor Dent sent to put the trench there, he's also sent to get a suit measurement for James Bond, just because he can't, just to humiliate him and degrade him,
Yeah.
Maybe that's a good point.
So anyway, while they're fast asleep, Doctor No, we don't see him, but we see his silhouette, in the
he tucks him into bed.
Yeah, great bit of filming there, just like the angle there. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, like the metal hands as well, like.
Yeah. So that happens. Then we cut to the next morning. Bond's woken up. He's chosen a brown shirt to wear, which just looks awful, but whatever. That's like apparently appropriate for whatever they're gonna for their dinner.
Suitable for what?
Yeah, that's right. And then they go and sit down. Oh, sorry. Actually, they go in the lift. They go. They're admiring the aquarium. Oh, I wonder how much this cost to build.
Yeah, exactly.
She gets Honey, what she found quite interesting. Like, well, not it's just funny in a way, but like Honey Rider's like, oh, sea tulips, and like first time I heard of them in that film actually. It's like they do not grow below 200. They only grow like below 200 above. She's like, they don't grow above 200 feet, and I like kind of looked it up, and actually they only grow like up to like 80 meters or 240. So she's basically wrong there.
Yeah, but
maybe she had an outdated encyclopedia, like.
Yeah. Her education also comes from an encyclopedia.
Also, I'd like to nominate this as the cinema line of this. First line we hear from Doctor No, like in person, is just $1 million, Mr. Bond. You're wondering how much it costed, and then goes on to say about how he designed it and so on. And a bit of trivia about this as well. With this, with the actual fish, like obviously they had to get footage for it. They almost actually forgot to do that, and because of the lack of time they had to get like some like stock footage, but it was only extreme close-ups of fish. Right. So that's why they had Doctor No explain, well, it's a magnifying, effect of the glass.
He kind of sells it as well. He's like
such I never doubted
scientific
that.
Like
really interesting
person. He would pull something off like that to impress whichever prisoner he has down there.
And the Sigma conversation continues, because he goes, the magnifying effect makes it look like, whales and minnows, and it's like, oh yeah, that's what. And Bond goes, yeah, that's what you are, whatever. He's like, yeah, like you're. It sounds a bit like you, whatever your operation basically.
Like
and then Doctor No goes, depends upon which side of the glass you stand, and it's like, yeah,
that's pretty good.
Doctor No's bringing the Sigma energy in this film, man. Bond's obviously an alpha, like.
Well,
Doctor No's Sigma male of
Alpha and
Sigma.
He
has no. Yeah, actually, to be fair, a lot of Bond villains, they have like women or hench women, he just doesn't associate at all, and he as well. Also, I like to respect Doctor No is like proper dripped out for this as well, man. Now respect his outfit, he's like pure. It's not like white. It's like very like beige kind of like his full outfit.
It's like proper communist Chinese attire, right? More or less.
Yeah, a bit like.
Well, yeah, I get that's the whole thing, really.
The thing is that he does that. I don't think any other villain does quite as much. It's like he comes off almost like, I know, very like science fiction kind of villain.
Yeah.
Like in a suit, you wouldn't be amiss to think he was in like a Superman villain.
Yeah, I know you mean this
very outlandish.
from the moment you see the hazmat suit guys come out the tank, this is where we get a bit of 60s sci-fi from the rest of the film, I think, in a few ways. And it's hard to tell because 60s sci-fi is not like 80s or 90s or sci-fi as we know today. So it's limited in what they're able to do, but I think they were trying to go down that route in a sense. But anyway, so then they have dinner and they have a good old chat. Doctor No explains like how he stole $10 million from the Chinese mafia or government, whatever it was.
The Tong Society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, because they have
So he
dinner,
explains
right?
his whole thing, his whole shtick basically, and then it winds up in Bond. Like, he tries to recruit Bond into Spectre. He's like, yeah, I admire how much trouble you've caused me. So how do you feel like joining?
Yeah.
One
The
thing-
funny
Can you
thing is,
can you explain this gap in your CV?
yeah, exactly. The thing is though, like this scene, like it's a very very good scene, but
Yeah.
two things in there. One, they're meant to be having dinner, right? But so far as I can see, they're like eating grapes for dinner. There's like nothing on their plates. And this like this I don't know if this is just like from British schools, but this feels like a conversation between like a teacher who's like and a kid who's just trying to like wind them up basically.
Yeah,
Like
for real. Like,
James
yeah,
Bond's like being
Bond
like
keeps like poking, like trying to get a reaction out of him, and Doctor No doesn't care, man. He's proper like poker face the whole time, man. And he's just
yeah
yeah.
he like I mean most of the time this probably wouldn't work, but he does like Joseph Wiseman does make this work. He's literally like he doesn't like move at all. Basically, he doesn't
Mm.
break his stare or
He's
anything. Like
completely
much, yeah.
irate during the whole thing. It's like he's like in a scientist drawing. He's like analyzing.
Yeah,
James
yeah,
Bond,
yeah,
man.
exactly.
One thing that something
Bond can't shake him at all.
one thing that I like is just the idea. Maybe like if James Bond had agreed theoretically to join Spectre, like he was going to be like their Red Grant or something. He was
yeah,
gonna
that
be
would have been
their-
interesting. Alternate universe. That could be the next James Bond
He gave
film.
Red Grant a job, basically.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, the next film is actually going to be Red Grant trying to get rid of him so he can be employed.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, oh yeah, and then he goes, yeah, anyone who usually gets in my way, and then he like crushes the Buddha statue, which it becomes a bit of a trope as well. So and he demonstrates the power of his metal hands as well.
Yeah.
Which I'm not gonna lie, man, the metal hands thing just never worked for me as a gimmick. Like, I know we have some pretty lackluster Bond villain, like quirks, whatever. From this to like metal thumbnails.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was just a joke.
Your favorite, but still, like I don't know, the metal hands just. I guess for the '60s it looked cool for me. I was just like, nah, I've never bought it.
Well, I would also like to. I mean, this isn't really a Sigma quote. I just think it's a cool quote in general, where he says, he's like, like Spectre's made of like the greatest like brains of the world, and then
Oh yeah,
James Bond's like, oh, criminal brains, and then he says the successful criminal brain is always
Yeah.
superior. It has to be.
yeah,
Like proper sits him
and
down.
he's
Like,
pretty much right as well. And I forgot to about Spectre as well. Like, yeah, they actually this always makes me laugh. Like, this is something that doesn't age well. Spectre's like an actual acronym which includes things like revenge and extortion and stuff, man. It's like do either of you know off the top of your head what Spectre stands for?
it's
Special like executive for terrorism, extortion, revenge, and something else.
Yeah.
Counterintelligence.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was just
Yeah, it's really messed
It makes
up.
you, it cringes you out every time as well.
But
Yeah, it's like-
I feel like later when we'll get to it when Blofeld actually mentions one of the acronyms like extortion is my business. And it's like we'll get to that.
they can you imagine if like James was like, repeat that please? I didn't quite catch the third part of it.
Yeah, and then this is where Bond goes, yeah, well, if I did join, I'd start with revenge, for whoever killed Coral, which is pretty cool and Strangler.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. So and then Doctor No. Oh yeah, he has another good quote which ages well. He's like East and West just as stupid as each other. Americans are fools. Like poking fun at Americans happens a lot.
Yeah, and also the East as well at the same time. He's just in it. He's just in it for his own grind set.
Exactly. This is why Doctor No is the Sigma male of Doctor No.
I think they play a bit more into like him being kind of more East-esque because he's like because that would like worry. I don't know. That'd be like have a better effect or more impact on the English audience and stuff generally watching it. But he does like discredit both of them, and he's like,
yeah, exactly.
I'm in it for like my own kind of goal.
Exactly. So anyway, so Bond basically refuses to sign up. So he goes, "All right, well, you're just a stupid policeman," and you know, and then he gets the shit beaten out of him, basically. You know,
Yeah,
so,
soften him up, will you?
yeah, that's right. Then Bond, yeah, he gets battered. Basically, he wakes up in a prison cell. He escapes through like a pipe. I wanted to ask about this pipe, like because he has a reaction to it where he has to like basically pad up his hands, and then he gets washed over with some kind of water, which I'm still not really sure what it is. I think the pipe is hot because you see steam coming off the water as well. So I'm gonna guess like the pipe was really hot for him to touch, and then the water comes and it's like some radioactive water waste
Yeah,
or
it
whatever,
must
and it
be.
steams like on the hot pipe. Is that what you
Yeah,
got?
it's probably it's probably fun. I mean, James Bond probably like got like some radiation poisoning from this,
Yeah.
but he yeah,
That's
I
why
assume
that's why I can, play the field so much, man. His balls don't work.
yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I think because of the way that nuclear reactors work, I mean it's basically like every single way of generating energy just boils down to literally boiling water into steam, and this must be like just radioactive water they're cycling around or something in cleansing it. So yeah, James Bond was boiled a bit here, so
You
it might
think? Okay,
might
so
not be that hot,
do
but
you think the water was hot then, or was it the pipes? Because I thought it was the
probably
pipes.
both.
Yeah, I
But it
think
probably wasn't like that hot, otherwise he'd been like
Yeah, exactly.
skin.
Like scalded, like burn marks and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It must have been room temperature or something.
one thing that like they did leave out of this film. Apparently, the tube like climbing sequence was supposed to end with James Bond emerging on the other side, and I'm glad they didn't do this because in the novel they do it. So like he faces off against Doctor No's giant pet giant squid.
Wow.
And yeah, that would have been so impossible to film back then. Like the way they did it differently, like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, but that's because it was
Yeah,
set
I was
outdoors.
thinking the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same.
Because
they
in the
couldn't
original they had like some sort of obstacle course that Doctor No made from like Takeshi's castle or something.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
bit like that, but I remember the giant squid he was supposed to, and that would have like completely taken disbelief.
Yeah,
suspension
definitely.
away.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would have destroyed the budget too.
Yeah. So then, yeah, so Bond, he basically. By the way, this is like an interesting thing about Bond, because we always, we picture Bond as looking, clean and proper all the time.
Yeah, he's
He
like
battered, man. He's got like blood, ripped shirt, his hair's everywhere, he's sweating. I think he's barefoot, or he's like really like he's, not
it's
in
like
good condition, which is like and that's part
You'd
of
expect that.
Yeah.
part of being a hero as well. Yeah, exactly. You kind of like got to see them down as well as up all the time.
yeah. He
Um,
just he just takes out the technician Chang.
That's right. Yeah, he puts on the hazmat suit. He's trying to blend in, trying to fit in very unsuccessfully.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
when you lie on your CV and you've just got like you've somehow ends up in the like nuclear reactor chamber or whatever.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
It's like Homer Simpson in there, man.
Yeah, literally, basically.
And you wonder, with Bond. Now, this has just occurred to me. What if he just because his whole plan was just to sabotage the to cause an accident basically, so the whole thing
Yeah, what if he
He
got
could
a
have
job?
he could have saved himself a beating there just by going, yeah, right, yeah, I'll sign up as Spectre, and then go and sabotage it. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, maybe he'd have had to make him go through like several like training forms or
Yeah,
something to waste his
maybe
time.
there's bureaucracy for like processing his CV or and
yeah, but he would
maybe
have probably
take-
stayed the night and
Could
then
have taken like some
Yeah.
Spectre
Well-
training islands and stuff like that, and then
But-
the rockets would have been ruined. I'm not sure.
maybe. Well, anyway,
I mean, what do you actually think of like the set design? Because this is Ken Adams's work, just like this one, which is my background. Like this is a very, very like I don't know. I think it's a pretty iconic
It
well,
is,
basically Bond layer.
It is like it's very the thing is you could see like they had budget constraints with it, but you still get to see some of the like Ken Adams touch to it. Like it looks very futuristic in a way, like parts of it. I'm not sure like there's plenty others who could describe it much better, but that's kind of the feeling I get from It is good for what it. For
I think for the
strength.
time, yeah, for the
Yeah.
time it
Yeah.
must have looked like stunning. But
Yeah, they
I
had
mean,
100K's worth of medical and scientific equipment donated basically to help him with it. So
Oh, that's
I
cool.
mean, if I think about, I mean, obviously, nowadays it's not impressive at all. So I think I'm a little bit spoiled by, like Blade Runner, etc.
Hmm.
But like, I think about fellow films in the '60s that were sci-fi and kind of tried to achieve something. Think about the Batcave, for example, in the '60s Batman. I think that looks a lot more impressive than this, and as well, I
Hmm.
The
think
thing is, there's so many more scenes to take place in the Batcave. They kind of had to put more budget into it. But this
true.
is like just one scene. I think they do pretty well enough for what they had. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't look terrible by today's standard, but it's
No,
not.
it doesn't. Well, no, that's true. But I think, and then in the '60s, well, I'm trying to think of another '60s sci-fi film. Obviously, 2001: Space Odyssey,
Hmm.
and that is like that set the standard for sci-fi even to this day in a lot of ways. So I guess it was it's not something memorable for me, to be honest. It's the sort of thing you have to point out for me to notice.
Well,
Otherwise I'm just like meh.
the thing is though that I find amusing about this is that James Bond is very lucky to be he knocked out the guy who also happens to work on like the most important do not touch this lever thing,
Yeah,
like reactor.
danger warning. Yeah,
Yeah,
really on
yeah. Imagine because like Doctor No's doing like basically a head count check of like, oh yeah, is this good? Is this working? Is this working? And he gets down to the one who James Bond is in pretends to be, and he's like, and
Chang.
he's like standing behind him with like like a lemon with some papers, and he's like, Chang, what are you doing, man? Like get up there, and he's just like.
Yeah,
He just drops his head like then just like
yeah,
shuffles
yeah,
off.
yeah, yeah,
One
yeah.
thing that kind of surprises me a bit is like all these people are like in a different section for stuff they're supposed to control. And you see the camera going past his
Mhm.
Dot's nose, like doing a head count. Um, uh, like it's like James Bond's meant to be in his section, but like later he just like invites himself up
Yeah,
to the
yeah,
other.
yeah.
Maybe Dot's
Well,
nose is looking at whatever he's doing in the control panel, but like and doesn't notice. But he's
I don't
very
know.
lucky to like have that all fall in place,
Well,
basically.
James Bond is a very lucky person anyway.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Hmm.
the thing
that's his biggest gadget.
Yeah. The thing as well, you've got like basically the live feed on four different televisions each with like
Mhm.
varying blurriness, which I never got.
Mhm.
Of like the launcher like Cape Canaveral or whatever. And I like to imagine that those screens also like Doc's No's gaming setup as well, like
Yeah, man.
where he plays Pong or whatever.
So yeah, so Bond goes and like, okay, what can I destroy here? He sees the reactor there, says, all right, let's go for that danger bang. So he starts turning the wheel, and then he gets in a fist fight with the guy, knocks him over, and then Doctor No comes to like fate. And by this time, the alarms are true. Now this is where the film just completely goes to shit because it's like it's kind of like because the pacing of this film has been really slow. So not slow, but like it's been at a certain level.
Hmm.
It's and then all of a sudden, all hell breaks loose, and it's like, and then it just gets really quick. The music is a bit too dramatic. I don't know, and it's just like very rushed. You get this last minute fight with Doctor No, which results in him, like sliding down the metal thing, and his metal
Yeah.
hands can't grip on. So that's
Yeah,
that's
I think that like kind of I mean for what it is, I think it's still an all right fight. I mean
Yeah,
yeah, it's all right.
Yeah,
it's
and then especially like, yeah, it's pretty horrific way to go into boiling
Yeah,
like radioactive water, and then like the
yeah,
last shot of his face before he goes down as well, like his
yeah.
he's he's like gone like red like a tomato, man. He's like,
Well, isn't it
so,
ironic that he lost his hands due to that, and then the last thing he loses in this thing is his hands? So
yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, it's because of his hands too. So
yeah, yeah,
he like
like he's scraping away at the pole as well, like
yeah, yeah.
he like he one thing that's like yeah, I like how they kind of use his hands against him because at one point you see his like hand go to this electric thing and then it kind of gives him a shock, I guess, and then he
Oh
has
yeah,
to and then he like the thing that kind of and then obviously he like loses his grip, but what kind of like is a bit weird for me is like how when he's going down, there's clearly like a one going to the side. There's a beam that goes like
yeah.
horizontally that his hands were above, so that would have stopped him at least. And then like I don't know if that probably wouldn't have been enough, but like to get him out. But like they kind of edit around it, so like his hands are below as you see like another shot of him falling into
well,
the.
his hand is
it's
probably like slippery as well or something. Yeah, he's not really gonna be going on climbing frames anytime soon. So
he just that's how he ends up. I think it's decent enough. It does is the pacing does change a little bit and the music just doesn't
A
age
lot,
very
yeah,
well.
man.
But
I thought the music was
I
all
think
right in
it's
it.
decent. I think it does what it's supposed to do.
Well, yeah, it's
well
like this panicking. It just feels out of place because of how the rest of the film has been.
One other thing is actually this is the last kind of main Bond like villain fight we get for a while, where he like physically like fights them because he doesn't really fight Rosa Klebb and
Fights Goldfinger
he fights Goldfinger, but that's like over like instantly basically.
and in Thunderball.
And in Thunderball, but
He fights almost all.
I don't think it gets like as like that. It's weird to think that that's like the most intense main villain fight that they have for quite a while. Like he
I mean,
doesn't
on the
really
Manchester
fight.
Secret
I
Service,
think
man.
Rosa Clovis a lot more.
Yeah, but he doesn't
Yeah.
like. It's not like a fist fight. He's like he more or less.
Still
we'll get to
fighting.
that, but like
Yeah.
I don't think so. Really, that's a bit like yeah.
Well, anyway, so that's it. Doctor No dies. Everyone's running for their lives. He finds Honey as well. She's tied up
Yeah.
on some. Yeah, Tom, you were going to tell me about this.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah.
So basically, to up the ante a bit, she was meant to. They were meant to surround her with like crabs initially.
Oh.
So she was meant to be held down. The suspense, like the crabs are going to eat her or something, and then, which I'm not sure about. But
Very slowly.
yeah, they just got kind of got rid of them for some reason. And that
Well,
was
no,
it.
the reason is because when they actually turned up, well, I mean, they had to import the crabs in. Most of them were dead, so they're actually dead on arrival. So it wouldn't have really worked.
Thus, so was the idea. And,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
so that's like, oh, she might get drowned by the slowly rising water.
Yeah.
It's like some like very bad saw trap kind of.
Yeah, it is. So then, he frees Honey. Everyone's evacuating. They find like a convenient boat to jump onto.
Yeah, no, they throw off two guys,
Yeah.
and then go on.
Yeah, make light work of that. The base blows up, so that's and then we get this whole dramatic Americans like, oh no, the rocket's gonna fly off, whatever. I don't know. It's like it's all very, very rushed to the point where you completely forget what the plot was happening.
yeah.
Anyway, the base blows up. We get some explosions and stuff.
Just good explosions, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they actually for the entire like exploding part, the guy that got to do the miniatures, he only had $1,000 for the budget, so not bad for that. And then he ends up becoming the basically their main sort of like I think special effects or production designer or something like that.
Oh, good on him. And yeah, so then Bond and Honey, they're in their boat, and then we get in typical fashion, man, the like poking fun at Americans. They just shove this like dramatic American military music in their like gunboat, like full of sailors and stuff, man. Like
Way too late already.
Yeah, and Bond's like, "Oh, do you need help?"
Yeah.
He says earlier on, it's like, we'll be back in 12, and not then it's your bit, but they've clearly spent like a whole day on the island, and then by the time they they go in the evening, and then in the morning, I don't know how the time works, but I don't think it's...
Yeah, it would have been over 12 hours. Well, that's right.
There might have been like 36 or something, I'm guessing.
I think they have one sleep there, though.
Yeah, well, they have all right, well, think about it. They have one sleep, and then... I don't actually know. They're supposed to have dinner with Doctor No.
They have two
It depends how long they're unconscious for. That's what we don't know.
They have two sleeps because James Bond sleeps and wakes up and sees Ursula, like Honey Rider, and then they spend the day on the island.
Oh
and then
you're right. You're right.
So it's like full 24 hours is implied.
At least, you're right.
Yeah, then also him when he wakes up in his cell and so on. Anyway.
Useless Americans.
Can you imagine if he overslept like really badly and then missed the rocket launch? Because he only got there with like 2 minutes left, actually.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, you don't even realize that, do you? Like, you have to watch a few times and think, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and like, I never got this kind of, I mean, yeah, of course he wants to bang, he's James Bond. Like, he's like, oh yeah, throw us the rope. And then, because they're out of fuel. And then he just unties it anyway. They're like stranded in the middle of the ocean. It's like, all right then.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that happens in a few of them, but it's just like...
Yeah.
I think I think they just do it. He does it because they're like, it doesn't matter. He's just trolling the Americans. Still have to go and get him back if he lets the rope go.
It's worth noting as well. Felix Leiter is the one leading the charge, basically. So yeah. Useful.
Well, he's doing his bit, and
he's just like justifying his paycheck at that point.
Well, as the something I want to note, because this is when the credits roll, but
Mhm.
the art director actually found that his name wasn't in the credits. But the producer Albert Broccoli, he gave him a golden pen to compensate him because they actually couldn't afford to redo the credits again.
Wow.
Because obviously now you can just make digital credits, but then back then you couldn't. You can just like snip someone's name in there.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's really. I don't know. It's funny how they decided to give him a gold pen. It's like really random gift.
Hmm.
Compensate, but I wouldn't be complaining. Imagine getting that and having the story behind it as well. So
Yeah.
I'd
And
take.
and also a last bit of trivia, seeing as it's to the end of the film at this point.
Mhm.
Well, after it had been released in Italy, this film, the Vatican itself issued a special communique saying they expressed disapproval at its moral kind of standpoint.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, that's Doctor No. So now we're going to go. I mean, we're going to just nominate which we're going to have for each category, and so at least this ranking section probably won't be that long. So, Bond actor Sean Connery goes in at number 1 for now, and I suppose we'll speak more about him in a later episode because we'll be comparing him to later Bonds as well. But he definitely sets the tone here, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a Scottish Bond as well.
Yeah, hits the ground running basically.
Absolutely. The Bond girl, obviously, Honey Rider. So she's going number 1. Bond villain, Doctor No.
Doctor
Let me ask you
Julius
actually,
No,
with Sean Connery. I mean, I know we're going to do these privately, but like, where do you think Sean Connery will end up? Like, I reckon he'll probably end up sort of in the middle.
I would have thought he'd have ended
Yeah.
up at least first or second.
Okay.
Me too. Me too.
Okay, we'll see. We'll see. Bond girl, what about Honey Rider? Where do you think she'll end up by the end of?
She's
Just
really
roughly.
iconic. Like,
No clue really.
she's not gonna get. She's not gonna end up like.
That should be top half, I
She's
think.
not gonna
Should be
end
top
up
Yeah,
half.
for
below
sure.
half, like
Yeah.
at all.
Doctor No. This is going to be interesting. He could end up anywhere, I think, because he is good, but I
He's
feel
just
like
not
he
in it for
just
much.
doesn't have enough screen time to really
I think
later ones that we'll
I
be
think he'll
comparing him
be
to.
like. I think he'll be. It's not really his screen time, but it's also how they build around the character as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Adds to him like, and he delivers on that. He's like
He's
really,
memorable, yeah.
He is like I think
Yeah.
what he has he delivers very very well, and others do not later on, which we'll talk about. But so yeah, he's I think he'll do pretty well actually.
hmm We don't have a henchman in this film, I don't think, really, do we?
No, what about the guy who drove him from the airport?
No, we don't have a proper henchman in this film.
Yeah. Doctor No
Um,
is the henchman.
Car/vehicle, I don't think we really have either. We've got.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't have any Aston Martin
We
vehicles.
can have the
Really.
dragon.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe the Dragon Tank.
Nah, I don't think even that really. I mean, Bond does drive a pair of cars, but they're just
Yeah, not
Rank
noteworthy.
the 3
they're
points.
yeah, they don't have any notable features
Okay.
apart from
Bernard-Lee.
Yeah, he'll do really well. I think.
Well, he's only got 3 or 4
yeah,
contenders.
3 competitors. Well, you've
4.
got you've got the M's from the other ones as well. The non-official ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, shit,
We're
yeah.
also gonna have James Bond's gonna go Sean Connery's gonna go against David Niven.
Oh yeah. We don't have a Q either.
Well, you
we
have
Moneypenny, of
Major
course.
Booth
The
Royce.
equipment officer who shows up, but yeah.
No, it doesn't count. We've got Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny, of
she's-
course.
Yeah.
Ally/Felix Leiter. Now, we've
Yeah,
kind of
Felix Leiter's
bundled these
pretty
into the same category because a lot of the time the ally is Felix Leiter, but we have here Quarrel, so I think he's going to be the
I think I would have put Quarrel above this Felix Leiter. He's just so much more memorable.
So, actually, we'll put them together. So Quarrel and Felix Leiter from Doctor No. Do we have a gadget? Maybe the bamboo reed or just
His Wolf the PPK.
Yeah.
The Geiger counter. His shoe.
Yeah, his hair.
Yeah. Cigarette. There's a cyanide cigarette.
Are we gonna do a gadget?
That is
Probably the bamboo. I would say the bamboo snorkel because
That's
that
not
saves
even
his
a
life.
real
It saves
gadget.
his
Though.
life.
It's like
that's silly.
But it saves his life.
It's so unrealistic.
And
though,
it's
to think
thinking
about.
on his feet, man. You know, it's like
Do
resourceful.
you know
what
how
about
like,
using his
and
surroundings.
James
bamboo
missing
is
out for shank, you know?
notorious? I'm sorry, but bamboo is actually notoriously hard to cut through. Like, so
Adapt,
he just has
overcome,
like
improvise.
her little knife, and there's like, oh, he'd be hacking away at that for
Bond
ages.
is
with that.
Bear Grylls, man. You know,
He's
like...
not Bear Grylls. Well, but like in
Does,
this film,
does he have the face of a man who's drunk his own piss?
have the cyanide cigarette because that was like low key gadget. But
Yeah, like, that doesn't. That's not A, a
At least
Bond
it's
gadget,
a-
and B, it kills
it's a
someone. It doesn't
gadget,
save his
though.
life, man.
It is a gadget.
The bamboo thing saves his life. What would you rather have on you?
Yeah, that,
in a situation?
This is not like
Yeah.
applicable to us because it's like
Yeah,
fiction.
it is.
And
This is, we rank
Well,
sword
alright,
tracks
you know,
based
what
on
if-
how little we'd want to be in them. So
What if we just, you know, do the fact that he
It would
switched
not
out his
look like
Beretta for a Walther
Blackbridge
PPK?
Dogs.
You know, that's an iconic Bond gadget. His gun.
Yeah, use the gun because if not in this film, when else would?
That's literally, and by the way,
Alright.
that's literally given to him by the guy who becomes Q.
Yeah, I
so-
suppose you're right. All right, fine. Wolf PPK.
the box that the Beretta goes
The
in.
theme song, obviously, the Bond theme.
You
Oh,
really
I have
sure
to go
about that?
Bond
Because that would easily.
Yeah,
come
of
out.
course. No, we don't know about that.
You
No,
don't
no, you'd be surprised, Tom. You'd be
All right,
surprised.
majority vote. I'll keep my silence.
The opening. We don't even have one.
There is no
Sigma
opening.
moment, Henry.
I have to say it has to be $1 million, Mr. Bond. First thing he says is flexing his
Yeah,
butt.
I think Doctor No overall he's just the Sigma male of the film, isn't he? And like you know, the minnows thing was like depends which side of the glass you're
I
on.
like when the villain gets a little comeback at James Bond, but
Yeah.
but he does have like, and you've had your six bang moment as well.
Oh, he's right, Henry.
Oh, that's tough. You've had your, but I'm thinking like archetypal Sigma male stuff, like.
Yeah, I think because it's not just the quote; it's Doctor No overall as a presence. He's the Sigma of this film, so I
And
think,
that's the first thing he says to him. Like,
yeah.
he's like
Introduce
reads
himself.
his mind.
I think what he says is better, like what Doctor No says, but when James Bond delivers the line, the way he delivers it is better. It's like, and you've had your six, and then that,
Yeah.
But
Oh, but as well, like,
I'll leave it down to what you two think.
well, this actually James who has to settle this really, because you know Tom and I are kind of set on this.
Really? No, I mean it's got to be Doctor No. Has to be.
All right, and put Doctor No there.
I mean, and because
Honourable mentions you've had
but we,
six.
you know, we have to be careful when we've been close to doing this with Bruce Wayne and stuff, where it's like, oh, we're mixing Alpha with Sigma, which we shouldn't do. So
Yeah.
and we got to keep in mind Sean Connery is like alpha male. You know, Doctor No is definitely the Sigma of this film. So
Yeah, that's the thing. You need to prevent and be against the mixing of Alpha and Sigma, because
exactly.
commonly done mistake.
And then the film itself, obviously Doctor No #1. Where do we think it will end up? I think probably mid-table.
Yeah, probably the middle table.
I will want to like fight for it to be a bit higher because of how iconic it is, but
Yeah,
that's
true.
my battle to fight, I guess, if and when. But
Right.
it might end up around mid, I think.
Yeah, maybe top half.
Mid, yeah, hopefully.
Well, that's pretty much it. We've done the rankings, so final words from you guys.
Doctor No is like a great film. Like it's the fact that it's against so many other great films in the same franchise that it might like slip behind a little bit. I think in any other franchise, this would be like top dog in many things because it plays like a detective story. If it was a standalone film, it would be like really well remembered. I think because it's really like good detective story. And I think rather than espionage, like where it's like East versus West kind of thing, it's more like a murder, like who did it kind of thing, and who's behind who did it. And he like goes around this island like. So I think it has its own identity, and I think it's a bit over like dismissed when it gets called a vanilla film, James Bond film. But I think it has its own. Maybe it's not like a strong identity, but like it does have its own identity. I think.
Well, I mean, we'll get to set the record straight on the millionth ranking. So
yeah, exactly. So I would personally say that Bond will be back, and so will we, and From Russia with Love.
That's right. Next week, join us for From Russia with Love. Same bat time, same bat channel.